Hello and welcome. Sunday Live, 158. I think that's right. Or is it 157? I think it's 158 this week. I can't remember. I made a thumbnail yesterday for this video. You'd think I would remember, but such is life. How's everybody doing? Good to see y'all. I've got a special guest coming next week. So that's fun because I haven't had a guest in a little while. So more on that in a little bit, and I'll tell you who it is. And let's dive right into some guitar action. Wait 1 sec here. I just gotta get a little bit of that going. Delicious. Gary Walker says he uses Friedman amps. By the way, what we do here is we answer questions about guitar and music, and we talk about life, and we drink coffee. For those that, why would you be here if you didn't know that already, right? Okay, Pete, I use Friedman amps, and over the last few days, Dave has helped me out loads. That's cool. I just want to say what an awesome person he is. Dave is great, man. He's really, he's one of my best friends, and he's a solid guy. No BS. He does not have time for BS. That's one terrific thing about him. He's Detroit. He'll tell you if he thinks you're being an idiot, and he's a good guy. He loves his Marshalls, and he's still passionate about it. Those tones, he obviously loves his amps too, but that's where his tonal DNA comes from, and I can appreciate that always. But anyway, he's a great guy, and he's got a big heart. Dave appreciation. Let's just start off the show with some of that. It's good stuff. What else? Natasha says, only 29 likes. Hit that like button, please. It helps spread the video far and wide across the worldwide interwebs. And let's see. What else? Gary Walker says he's from the UK, so he's used to it. But here's that the US is under lots of snow, lots of storms and stuff. Definitely. And whatever happened in Texas this week is just crazy. So that's sad. I hope those folks down there I know there's a lot of power coming back on, but man, they're going to be dealing with the, results of, burst pipes and, the water situation, the food shortages is just insane. So anyways, I feel really bad for all those folks out there, and hope they're getting the relief that they need. Arthur Gonzalez is up there in the super duper chat, and he says, this is to kick it off right with caffeine support. Thanks, man. And I that's exactly what I will do with your weekly donation or this week's donation. I'll go and get myself some new coffee, because I just noticed I was running out. I have very little left, so it needs to happen. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to see me here if there was no coffee involved. I would be very boring, and you would unsubscribe from the channel. Powered by coffee, I am. Angry Shoebox says, I really like that metallic green color of the Sir Strat style. Yeah, that's called cactus green. I get a lot of questions about that. It was funny. One guy on Instagram comments, because I put up that photo on Instagram as well, said, I never understood why they cover beautiful wood with opaque color or finish or whatever. And I'm like, dude, it's alder. It's not that exciting. So yeah, covering up figured wood. I sort of never did really understand. Okay, so there's a little truth in everything that folks say, I suppose, that you can garner. And I never understood when you see a almost center seam top Les Paul from the early 50s that's been redone as a conversion, and there's flames or bird's eye. Like, it's like, God, who didn't they think to to shoot a tobacco burst or something on that, even before the days of doing cherry bursts and whatever else they were doing on Les Pauls in the late 50s. But it would be weird to shoot gold over something with flames, or or whatever. I don't know. Who cares? All right. Who else is up there in the super chat? That's John he just did a super chat. And he says, hey, Pete, I have a Sir Reactive Load IR on the way. Best way to connect to a UAD interface. Use a TRS cable. So 1/4 inch to 1/4, but TRS balanced. And just go right into one of the depending on which UA interface you have, it'll have either the combo jack or line ins on the back if it's an Apollo 8 or something like that. But whatever, you can, you know, you want to plug in balanced essentially. You can use a guitar cable, but it's best obviously to go balanced is better for, you know, longer cable runs or noise or all those types of things. It's just a little bit more, it's a little cleaner. So that's the best way to go. What you don't want to do is plug into one of the XLR inputs on your, so if it's combo jack, that's fine with a quarter, but you don't want to go like 1/4 inch out of the reactive load and then go into an XLR with a 3-pin XLR style connector. That will automatically default your UA interface to mic level, which will cause issues. So that's not what you want. You know, part of the reason why we didn't put, and I've been criticized for this because it was really my recommendation, but not to put XLR out on the reactive load, because I said it'll create issues because people will plug into, they'll use a mic cable. They'll come out of the reactive load using a mic cable and plug into an XLR input on it, and there's going to be you will have nothing but customer service calls at that point. Why is this thing noisy? Why is it, you know, because the UA interfaces and many recording interfaces will default to line, sorry, excuse me, they'll default to microphone level, which is -30, and that automatically -30, it's expecting to see a low, you know, output of an SM57 or something, not of an active device like the reactive load that's putting out pretty much +4 line level. And you know, so you get all of a sudden you can barely crack open the knob on the reactive load, and you'll also hear hiss and stuff because it's bumping up the level of the thing 30 dB. That's what's going on. So that's why I'm about to lose the super chat here. I'll just come back to that because I think this is an important point actually. JCM says, I'm ordering a chub tone guitar and putting a Thornbucker in the bridge position. What next single coil pickup would you recommend? I really like these days the V63. So like in that guitar back there, that's what I've got. It's Thornbucker bridge, and well, actually it's something slightly different than the bridge right now that I'm just messing around with. But the Thornbucker works great. I mean, V60 LP was long my favorite, but I think I like the V63 now, which they used to call the Landau standard or whatever, the ML standard. Same pickup. It's just a great, really good sounding, you know, 60s style Strat pickup. So that's my favorite. I try the V63s. Will work great to balance with the bridge humbucker. Okay, so a little bit more on the you know the level thing. And this is why the PT15 also has a 1/4 inch output on the back, which you can use either unbalanced or balanced, either with a TRS or a standard guitar cable. Number one, it's a little bit more. You've always got a guitar cable. You don't always have an XLR cable as a guitar player. So I thought, well, it just makes sense, you know. And also most recording interfaces have 1/4 inch for the line level inputs. Now, some of them, I think maybe Focusrite, I've seen that you can maybe, you know, use the XLRs at line level, but all the UA stuff you can't. And I'm a UA guy. I don't remember about Apogee, but a lot of stuff sort of consumer grade, or not even consumer grade, even pro level, but interfaces that are in the under whatever price range. You know what I'm saying? Even, you know, UA, highly professional stuff, right? If you plug an XLR cable into your UA, it will not let you go line level. As far as I know, unless I'm missing something, but mine defaults when I plug in. It always did. It just goes right. You plug in a microphone cable, it thinks you're plugging in a microphone, not a line level device with an XLR cable. Does that make sense? And then you get the 30 dB of gain boost because it's expecting to see microphone level, and any kind of active device plugged into that's putting out line it's not going to work. So that was a big part of why those, besides the fact that a 1/4 inch jack is smaller. So when you're working with a piece of gear that doesn't have either the back panel of an amp, or but these are things that come into consideration with design, that there's not a hell of a lot of space there. So putting an XLR, the reactive load has 2 outputs on the back. One is filtered and the other is unfiltered, as opposed to having one with a switch. They opted to put, it was another reason to use the TRS style 1/4 inch jack, because it's like, well, if we do this, then we can have both going. Somebody could take one output and go to a PA, right, with your IRs, with your speaker simulation enabled, and you could take the unfiltered out and maybe go into a power amp and reamp and have a cabinet on stage. So, or you could print an output in your DAW with an IR, and you could print one unfiltered in case you maybe want to experiment later with other speaker simulation. You're not sure. So there was reasons to put the 2 jacks, but there ain't room for 2 XLR outs on the back, evidently, and also just on the inside of the unit. These are all the things that kind of come into play when you're trying to decide what to do with this stuff. So strong case for using the TRS style of 1/4 inch outs, you know. I assume the same reason why they use them for line level ins on a lot of the Apollo stuff. They'll either use that doesn't really, I always wondered why you couldn't, on the UA stuff, why you couldn't actually just default it to line level, even though it's XLR. But anyway, that's enough on that. Boring. Let's talk about tones. UAD does allow somebody sing. Mine doesn't, man. If I plug a mic in and I go to console, I mean, you're saying it does, but I don't think so, dude. I've got on, at least not for a long time. So if they do now, that might be a different thing. But I'm telling you, I tried to figure this out many times. So maybe they do now. I'm looking at console right now, and I can't remember if I've got a microphone plugged in. You might be right now. That could be something that they do now. But back when I was making this decision, you know, a couple of years ago, I could not get it to, it would just default to mic whenever I plugged the mic in, and then I couldn't switch it. So anyways, that might be a new thing that they do on Apollo 8 now or something. But anyways, some interfaces have a line mic switch. Mine doesn't, and will default to line when using the 1/4 inch. Yeah, a lot of them, they just default, you know, that was always the thing. So anyways. Okay, what else we got up there? Somebody in the super chat, it's James, and he says, have you got a system for setting pickup heights? My LSL T-Bone bridge pickup can raise the dead. You need to just basically use your ears. You know, that's what I do. I remember seeing a Joel Walsh video on this years ago where he was explaining how he did it. I always tilt the, I put the bridge pickup, not like some people these days, they put it kind of medium or low on the low side, depending on the heat of your bridge pickup and then what you've got. Like if you've got a humbucker in the bridge and singles in the neck, it's usually a pretty good idea to run it in the medium. If you bring it up too much, you're never going to get the neck pickup to balance in the middle pickup. So it really depends. If it's 2 single coils, you know, you're generally speaking, you're going to find that you're going to want to run the, or 2 or 3 single coils, you're going to want to run the bridge pickup a little higher and the middle pickup a bit lower, and especially if it gets in the way of your pick and like on a Strat, and then the neck pickup lower. And there's also stratitis involved. This is a hard one because it depends on the pickups. If the pole pieces are the magnets and they're pulling on the strings, you get the stratitis, like, you know, old school Strat pickups and stuff like that. And you'll get you can literally see it on a tuner when you set the neck pickup too high. You'll see that, like, hit the low E string at the 12th fret, and the tuner will be going like this, because the magnet's pulling on the string. It's literally like, and the string will sound out of tune, and you'll also lose sustain because it's actually pulling on the string. So it's all a balance. If we're talking humbuckers, is a different thing because the magnet's underneath the pole pieces, and it's a different design, and, you know, different for setting the tones. But I think when I saw Joe doing his little video on it, it was like a Les Paul or something, and he was talking about how he basically sets the neck pickup a little lower than the bridge, and then he angles the bass side down a little bit. And if you play, and you want to play clean, that's the other thing. You want to listen clean because distortion will even out the volumes because of the compression and stuff of the, you know, the overdrive. So what you want to do is play clean to listen to the volumes of the pickups and listen to the balance between them. And then you can check it with overdrive and make sure you like it and that it's, you know, hitting the amp hard enough and all that. Because the higher you raise the pickup, the louder it's going to get and the harder it's going to hit the amp. So it's all just a balance and what you want to hear. But my main thing is that I don't get a big volume jump, or as little as possible, when I change from pickup to pickup, and then it's not boomy because the bass side is too high. So there's a few factors there. You're getting the drive you want. You're getting that. The pickup can tend to sound a little more open and stuff when you're lower it down. Almost like to me, it's like you get a little bit, I don't know if there's any basis in this, but I feel like you get a little bit more of the tone of the guitar and not so much of the pickup. Like if you back the pickup down a little bit. Does that make sense? I don't know if there's any scientific basis for that, but that's the way I feel. So it's all a balance. I guess the constants are use your ears, balance them with a clean sound, and tend to run the bass side of the pickup a little bit lower, like to back down a little bit, because those strings are thicker and they create more energy. So, you know, the thin strings don't make as much. And so, preferred cables for patch cables for pedal boards. Fucking believable is asking. I would say, yeah, I really like the Providence with the tiny ends on them. Let me see if I got one around here. I used one for something yesterday. What was it? I know I had one here. I could show you what the ends are like. I just don't know. Damn it. Where's things when you need them to show people on the interwebs? I know I have one here somewhere. Providence. I don't know. The ends are tiny. That's the thing that I like about them. Is they're really small and the cables sound good. They're low capacitance. I'm not sure where you order them from in the States. I just can't remember what I was doing with it. The patch cable, now I don't have it here. So I'm sorry I can't show it to you right now. But Providence, look at them. They have very small angled ends. You know, so it's a nice cable for a pedal board. And the cable themselves, it's like when pedal boards are tight these days, you think, oh, what's the big deal? Like thickness of cable, how much difference can that make? But the thickness of the cables and that when you're bundling them together on a board or whatever, you know, can really add up. So I find that the Providence are really low profile, especially if you're using a switcher too. You can use they make very small straight ends too. So you can use a combination of the straights and the angles to do what you want to do. And it's kind of cool. So I would say that's kind of my favorite. Stefan says, to everyone waiting for an ordered quad Cortex, the manual is now available on their website. Not that you'd need it, but might entertain while waiting. Yeah, check it out. See what they say in their manual. Yeah. What else we got here? Any experience with blue chip picks? I don't think so. Although my friend Colin recommended that I order some of these blue picks the other day that are, I don't think they're the same thing. They're not Hercos, but they're the ones the Edge use, and they have the serrated edge on them, which gives you the extra chimey AC30 sound. Like have you seen those? That's not what you're talking about, is it though? Those blue picks. I ordered them. Here they are. I ordered them from Germany. What are these? These aren't what you're talking about, but they are blue. So there's that. They have that going for them. See the serration? I guess Edge turns them around and doesn't use the edge. He uses the side. And when you play with them, have I got it? You can get a guitar here. Let's get a guitar so we can hear. Because you can really hear it unamplified, so it's even better, you know? How's that song go? I don't think that's the guitar part. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but that song, Crumbs from Your Table, that's the serrated side, and then that's unserrated. The serrated side. So it really makes the string just, and through an AC30 with the, top boost, it's got this great attack to it. That is, I always wondered how he did it. And it's the damn pick, of course. This little piece of plastic make all the difference in the world. Pretty cool. Robert Valdez says, speaking of sustain, do you have an overdrive, distortion, or other pedal that enables you to get some serious sustain on a bend? Well, the number one thing is the freak out, which is how I cheat these days. It's a Digitech pedal that gives you feedback. And so it'll grab any note and at least for a few seconds, hold on to it beyond what it would normally. It's my secret weapon. Not so secret, but really a good pedal for anybody recording at home that can't have a loud amp, and you want to get, maybe you're using plugins or a modeler or even an amp with a cabinet in the other room, and you want to be able to get some sustain. The friggin' Freak Out is fantastic. What other pedals do I use? I mean, I do have 2 compressors on my board. I've got a Unit 67, which is my all-around kind of sweetener box. If I need a little compression, a little bit of tonal, because it's got a bass and treble, and also kind of a Rangemaster-like, not as aggressive as a Rangemaster, but it has a Rangemaster style kind of upper mid boost in it. And then it's also, it's a compressor as well. So it kind of shapes the tone and will give you a little bit of drive and a little bit more of the kind of guitar-esque frequencies, mid-range, that will kick the amp and give you a little bit more. So love the Unit 67. It's like a Moore pedal. A little more sustain, a little more chime, a little more, all that stuff. Great preampy compressor-y thing. My main drive is an Archer, and it's really cool. Pedal that I'll tell you that's coming, but I won't tell you what it is, that's really awesome, that I checked out this week, is something new from Origin. Really nice. So just get ready for that, for those folks out there that like Origin pedals, because I think they're great. I have a very nice something new on the way. What else we got going here in the chat? Let's see. I love the Ego compressor by Wampler. That's my other compressor. That's Murray. Yeah, Mini Ego is the one I have, and it's great. A little more my sort of regular compressor. Like it's doing the, when I play clean and I want to just bump up the sound and get a little bit more even. That's my kind of clean, if I'm running modulation and want a pretty sound, that's what I use. If I want a little more dirty color, I use the Unit 67, essentially. Politically Incorrect says, thanks for doing these videos, Pete. I really appreciate that you're so willing to share your wealth of knowledge. Thanks, man. Louder Than God says, I use the Freak Out when using my aux box or my Kemper for when I can't get a natural sustain from standing in front of a full stack. Exactly. Beyond all that, it'll do some crazy EBO-like strange sounds. So it's everything from a wacky pedal, because you can set it so there's no dry signal, and it'll feed back octaves, so it'll sound like some crazy flute or something. You can do that stuff with it, but you can also do everything from that to getting if you set it just right, you can get a very natural sounding feedback, as though you had a loud amp going when you don't, and it works really great for that. A lot of fun. And it's kind of a no-brainer for like home recording and stuff. Just gives you some more expression that you couldn't get any other way. Scott Brockway says, have you tried the Dude? I have, and I did. There's a demo of it on my channel from many years, probably 4 years ago or something. It's a good pedal. Ross, everybody, would like to announce that he's stoned. So, hello, Ross. Enjoy. What else? The Diamond compressor is really good, says Brett. Everything Diamond's pretty good, I think. I quite like their pedals. I've never tried anything from them that I didn't like. John says, any experience with Eastman guitars? No, I've never played one. Just got a Double Cut Junior and Color Me Impressed. Single Lawler P90, compensated bridge, varnish finish, light mahogany. Sounds like the right combo. That's cool. Ideas on how to stop background electronic noise from my computer, my wireless mouse, my Wi-Fi, my smart speaker, my cell phone. God, these modern days, these modern times that we live in. Is this stuff coming through your studio monitors, or is it coming through your guitar pickups? Give me a little more info. The main thing is that you get away from all that stuff whenever you're doing anything that's like, so in other words, you move the cell phone away from, that's what I always find is, well, I need to put these things away from whatever I'm doing that involves guitar tone, generally speaking. Live, it's like, there's always somebody at rehearsal that modern phones don't do it as much, but back 10, 15 years ago, cell phones, it's like you'd put it on your amp or close to your pedal board, and it'd be like, coming through your amp, and like, that it seems like the iPhones and stuff don't really do that as much anymore. But I remember those days where it was like, who's left their phone on, like during the gig, who's got their phone on their amp or whatever. Be a pain. Alex B is up there in the super chat, and he says, "What's a good drive pedal to take a gained up plexi style amp over the top to chewy, saturated, modded Plexiland?" Okay, well, let's start with the classic. Is always an SD. Was it SD1 or OD1? The I always forget the super overdrive, a Boss, right? The old one, you know, that was how guys did it in the 80s, and it worked great. They lop off a lot of low end, but into a plexi that keeps it tight. So that's what you're asking, you know, modded. I mean, essentially, I've thought a lot about this. When we're talking about a modded plexi, the tube in front thing that kind of, you know, Jose and that whole thing, like gain stage in front of a plexi thing, is essentially a tube in front. So you're adding another gain stage that's being driven hard and then driving into the front end of the amp, and you're getting all that extra, you know, gain and saturation and overdrive from that extra 12AX7 stage. Coming out of that 12AX7, there's a lot of low end lopped off with a 0.0022 cap that essentially shaves all the lows off the signal. And that keeps things tight, because if you didn't have that, it would be kind of woolly. You'd get all that drive and it would just be fat and not like what we think of as modded plexi. It wouldn't be tight. So an overdrive does the same thing, sort of. You're simulating that, you know, 2B gain stage in front and hitting the front end of the amp. Does it sound the same? No. Like the high voltage, you know, real 12AX7 thing in the amp is really cool. But it can be a great sound still. It's just slightly different. If you watch watch the video I did on the Waza version of that super overdrive, and I bet that's what you're looking for. I almost don't need to go any further and recommend any other pedals. If you watch that video, tell me if that's what you want. It sounds pretty great, that Waza version, you know, for getting a 80s, you know, extra juicy harmonic thing in front of I'd used it in front of the XL68 with my single humbucker guitar, and kind of kills for that sound, really, I think, if that's what you want. There's other pedals too. Dave Friedman designed his Golden Pearl pedal, I think, to kind of be used that way, which is really kind of a variation on his old Naked Overdrive. And, you know, like I say, he's a Marshall guy. That's what he likes. And he designed that as a kind of extra juice in front of that style of amp, or many styles, but it will work great in front of a Marshall. So that's another one you might look at, the Golden Pearl. Pretty cool. Bulldozer Guitar up there in the super chat says, "I'm looking at a MIDI EQ that can be in the loop or out front. Would you go with the Boss EQ200 or Source Audio EQ2? Both good. Enjoy them both. I don't really know which one is better. Look at the different, you know, they both worked well. The Boss is bigger. That might affect your decision. It's also got sliders on it, though. That might affect your decision, because it's pretty nice to add it. And I love the graphic thing on the screen on it. But the Source Audio is very cool, too. It's much smaller. That's David Gilmour's choice now, evidently. He's using it. I think they're both good. It's hard to go wrong. I will say the Source Audio has a certain sound to it that reminds me of other Source Audio pedals, almost like I don't know if it's part of their digital thing that they do. It's not a bad thing. It just has a certain sound. That's all. That's kind of got a Source Audio characteristic to it. I don't know. It reminded me a little bit of their multi-wave distortion when I used it, even though it's just an EQ. It's just a certain sound that it has. Maybe the Boss is a little more neutral. I don't know. But both great, you know, both really usable. 528 people online. Happy to have you here. I've got a special guest coming on next week that I'll tell you about in a little bit. I'm going to keep you in suspense like they would on a cable news program. Don't go away. We're just getting started. Isn't that what they always say? Stay with us. We're just getting started. I'll tell you about the special guest in a little bit. Pete, are you an audiophile? Says Eric. I don't think so. I don't know if I'm an audiophile. I love, you know, I when I think about audiophile, I think about, you know, obviously, like you're talking about having a sick hi-fi setup, right? And, you know, with a tuned room and really getting into the, you know, and I don't do that really, but I do find it interesting. And I always remember, like, does anybody out there, some of you guys will know who Kevin Gilbert was, you know, fantastic musician, amazing, you know, writer and engineer, producer, performer that died tragically young, a long time ago in the 90s. But he was a friend of mine, a bit of a mentor. And I always remember him saying that because the guy had, I mean, he was an amazing musician, really, for his age. He was 27 or 28 when he passed away, and he was just wise beyond his years, and with crazy abilities. But I remember him saying that a guy that owned a hi-fi shop, or that's what he was into, he was a kind of audiophile type shop, said, come down and I'm going to set up a system for you, and I'm going to change the way that you hear music, And for a guy like that, for a guy like Kevin, that's like, oh, come on, give me a break, But this guy had a, hi-fi shop or whatever. So he went down there and he's like, how much is this going to be better than like the top end Kenwood stereo or whatever it was available at the time? And he said he went in this room and this guy had set up, they have those like listening rooms where you're going to buy like speakers and amps and stuff and, really tuned rooms. And he said this guy like blew his mind. Like he was listening to music that he knew, whether it was, Beatles or Pink Floyd or whatever. And he was hearing things that he'd never heard before on the recordings. So he was like, I was a total convert. Like I was knocked out. And he's a guy that, worked, he had a beautiful Neve console and a Studer and a, great studio and everything. And he was knocked out by this guy's hi-fi demonstration. So it's something I don't know anything about, but maybe I don't really have, what the problem is? I don't even have a place to put one of those things right now. I don't have I don't even know where I would, I can't really do that in my home right now. So maybe someday, maybe something I'll get into. Angry Shoebox says he grew up in the days of component stereos in the 70s. I mean, I remember it being so cool. Like I remember my parents getting the first like we got, a Technics receiver and nice turntable. I still have the turntable. It's actually in my home. I want to use it again someday. That's the only piece I have, but nice cassette deck and decent speakers and all that. We got all that stuff and took it home and I loved it. I loved the, it was just a simple, but it was a separate components with a preamp and an amp and nice turntable and all that stuff and proper turntable with direct drive, not the belt drive and all that. And, I had my record brush that was really, not the crappy one, but the one with the nice super soft bristles. And I used to brush my records every time I put them on. I did all that when I was a kid. So I guess I have sort of an affinity for the component stereo days and all that stuff. Pretty cool. Yeah, you're saying, Angry Shoebox, you still have your dad's 1977 dual turntable. That's cool. Ours would have been from around 80 or something, I guess. And, it's cool. Modern Vintage says, you must have to watch the latest Tone Talk. It's on par with the Jake E. Lee episode, but with tons of rack unit information. Really? On par with the Jake E. Lee episode? Wow. I know Michael Nielsen was doing it, and I miss it. I've been kind of busy the last couple of days, so I missed out on a couple things that I, wanted to see. But anyways, I'll have to check that out. I know they did it on probably like Soldano preamps and all that kind of stuff, right? I should check it out. That's good. Tone Talk's been getting pretty entertaining lately. Not that it wasn't always. Pat says that he just put a Thornbucker in the bridge of a T-style build and it rocks. Thanks, man. Glad you're happy with it. I am. Overdrive Guitar Channel says, any advice for standing out with a humble new guitar channel? Yeah, I mean, the only thing that you have to do is really do something a little different. So you have to come up with a unique idea that nobody else is doing that people respond to. That's the number one thing. And so that's up to you. It's just about getting creative with the style of content that you're creating. That's the number one thing. If you do the same thing that other people are doing, then it's sort of like more of the same. So you have to, figure out a way to make it unique. I feel like, for instance, with this live stream, it's a pretty simple idea. We talk about guitar and do, I try and answer questions, and sometimes I stumble and fall flat on my face, but at other times I hopefully provide some useful information and occasionally have guests. There wasn't really anybody doing it that much back when I started. Once I realized I could go live using, I used to not use StreamYard. I used to use just right out of Google Chrome, and it was a little spotty sometimes and would drop out and whatever. But once I realized I could do it, people, some of you folks have been around since the beginning, and now here we are over 2 years in, well over 2 years in. And I guess bordering on going on 3 years, right? So whatever, 150, what's there, 52 weeks in a year? So I'm 3 years, aren't I? That's crazy. I don't really think about it, but anyways, it just kind of, took on a thing of its own or whatever, and it's fun, and I look forward to it every week. And maybe that's the thing, is finding like I think there's a thing with predictability. I'm not so predictable with when I put out my regular YouTube videos, and other people are better about that. Like, doesn't Chris Buck has Friday Fretworks, for example, or these different things where Tuesday Talks, Mary Spender, these different things where it's predictable, and that tends to work well when folks know that a video is going to show up, I think, and they'll expect, your folks that your fans or the folks that follow you, they like that. I think it's human nature. People like a little bit of it's like a weekly television show that comes on. You're ready to see your show every Sunday or whatever, when you want to know what happens next or whatever. So that thing. But so I was going to say, the one thing that's predictable on my channel is this: every week, generally speaking, Sundays, there's this thing that happens, and you guys keep coming back, and so do I. And I guess we like that I like it. I like having something to look forward to during the week. That's a little bit predictable during these times of uncertainty. So that's another thing. If you can come up with something that folks look forward to and they'll come back for, it tends to take on a life of its own. It's Newbie is up there in the super chat, and he says, hope the small donation blesses you today. Thank you, sir. And thanks for all you do for our community. Thank you. I appreciate it. If you could play any venue with any artist, where would it be and who with? Oh, great question. Any venue with any artist. I'd love to play at Red Rocks again, but I've already done that. It's just so cool. I don't know. And I played there once, and it was really neat to play there because I'd seen it, in that great U2 video from when I was a kid. And it always seemed like such a magical place. So that was really fun. But other venues that I haven't played. I mean, I'd love to play Madison Square Garden. I've never played there. I'd love to play Tokyo Dome, or because I love Tokyo, so I'd love to get back there and be doing that. That would feel like, okay, I'm back and I'm still viable over here, because I really miss Japan right now. And the more time I spend over there, I would love to get back there. I'm always hoping it's not going to be the last time I go there to work, because that would make me sad, because I don't know. I just really enjoy my time there. So if I was at Tokyo Dome playing, that would mean that I'd made that happen again and was spending time there, and that part of my life was continuing. As far as with an artist, that I would have to say that would be with Kyoshi. I'd love to play Tokyo Dome with Kyoshi, the fellow that I play with over there in Japan. Wembley would be cool, never done that. So I've done some of these sort of bucket list gigs, like Donington, I got to play there, and I used to watch, like whatever that's Download Festival now. But when I was a kid, I always remember Donington. It seemed like all the metal bands would, whatever, it was like Iron Maiden and whatever. And so to play there was really cool. And it was a great, good gig, as I remember. Not like crazy good, but it was like a good gig, and there was a lot of people. And I was like, well, I did this bucket list. That crazy gig I did at Fuji, though. I mean, I don't know if anybody will ever do that again. If that's probably some of you guys, probably never heard of that. But it was like I did this 100,000 people all night long gig at Fuji. So that's like I don't know if I'll ever do anything like that again. I hope I do. But it was, 4 sets of music all night long from 9:30 till 6 a.m. in the morning with 100,000 people, with this gorgeous, when the sun came up, and it's all the mountains and stuff. And it was just like with the mountain in the background, Fuji in the background. It was unbelievable. On the biggest stage that had ever been assembled in Japan. That was really something, and just to be a part of that I was just so happy to be, just crazy, flying in on a helicopter, above the crowd. And it was like, this is friggin' nuts. Like, this is crazy. So that was cool. But anyways, Krager says, you mentioned the freak out up there in the super chat. He says, I just watched the video of it on your board and I'm getting it. You'll really dig it. I think you got to play with it a little bit to get it set right. I will say that the level, if you want natural feedback, the level on the freak out doesn't want to be up any higher than about 9 or 10 o'clock. And the onset sort of control, which is how it controls how fast the feedback comes on, set it about halfway. So set it at about noon, set the other one about 9 o'clock and start there. And I usually use, there's a a control that lets you set kind of the interval of the feedback on the freak out, anywhere from kind of a root to a fifth to a, and it'll kind of, it's slightly unpredictable, but it'll generally go to the kind of do that interval. Generally speaking, I'm using the top 3 settings on it. They're kind of like, one's called natural or something, I think, but there's that knob. It's a switched thing, and go to the last couple and try those, and they'll seem like the most natural if what you're looking for is kind of standard sort of feedback. That's my recommendations. I hope that's helpful. All right, going down to the bottom of the chat here. Robert says, I would love to see your band play at the Fillmore here in San Francisco. I played there with Cornell, and I think I played there with someone else too. Played the Fillmore a couple times in San Francisco. It's cool. It's always cool, and they've always got those great posters they make for every gig, which is rad. My last time there with Chris was a little odd, because it was on the promotional tour for the album that he did with Timbaland producing. The crowd it was just a little bit of a weird gig. I think that's the night I had a beer thrown at my pedal board. That's my memory. I don't know, maybe that was at the 930 Club in DC. That might be the night that the beer came flying across and I was like, oh, there's a certain segment of the crowd that's not digging what we're doing right now. But that was the thing. Whatever, you grin and bear it. It's rock and roll. It was an odd, I just say that it was an odd tour. We did this promotional tour where we tended to go on very late every night, and the crowd was maybe expecting to hear, Spoon Man and stuff, and instead it was mostly that new record, which was quite experimental. And there was a little bit of a backlash, I think, occasionally on the gigs, where people weren't getting exactly what they thought they were going to see. That's what happened. Rich Monks is there in the top chat, and he says 100,000 people in a chopper ride to the stage. Did you ask the crowd, does anybody remember laughter? My memory of it is that we had to go. The number one thing I remember is he wanted us to run up on the stage, and then no count. He wanted to bring his guitar neck down, and we kick into the first song, and we did that, and it was quite successful, but it was a little bit stressful. And there was another moment in the show where he wanted to do that again to end a song, but he wanted to do it from a small stage a quarter mile away from the main stage. He got in I'm not making this up. We did the song called Kizuna, and he got in his Corvette, because he has keep in mind, this is in Japan, so it's pretty rare to see an old 60s Corvette, but he has a beautiful old convertible, like 63 Corvette. And he starts the song on the stage, and we're playing, and it's this kind of heavy rock tune, and he's singing the song, and we do the first verse, first chorus, and in the second verse, he goes off the stage and runs down. Nobody knows he's going to do this, and he gets in his Corvette, and a guy's driving, and he's leaning over because the top's down, and he's leaning over the windshield, and he sings the whole second verse and second chorus as he's driving through the crowd in his 60s Corvette all the way out to the B stage. And we're on stage like rocking out or whatever on this huge stage, but he's gone now. He's driving out to the second stage through 100,000 people, and he gets all the way out there and gets on the stage, and they give him his guitar, and we had to vamp for a long time because it took a while to drive all the way out there. And he gets out there and gets on the stage, and he's got his acoustic guitar, and we played like the last chorus of the song or whatever, and then did this huge, kind of end, and he wanted to end, and we had to and I don't see so good. So he's like way over there. He's like this little thing, like way over there, a quarter mile away, and I could see him on the stage, and he had the neck up like this, and we were going forever, and then he's like, and we all had to stop. So anyways, that happens. Crazy stuff like that. It was wild. So much fun. All right. Any decent budget alternative for Sir Bella? Thanks for doing that's Rich Monks, and he was up there in the super chat, by the way. Thanks for doing the super chat. I appreciate that. And there's another one here from Arch. A budget alternative for Sir Bella. I mean, honestly, I would recommend the Fender custom 68 reissue something or other, deluxe reverb maybe. That would probably be good. They're good pedal amp, and they don't have a bright cap, so they'll take pedals well. Because when you ask for Bella, I think clean, and probably you want to use pedals. So yeah, I would recommend that you try those. You know, if you want a little lower volume, it's mainly for home. Try the Princeton. That's what I have here. It's in the realm of that style of amp. You know, I mean, the Bell is a special thing. It's its own thing, and it's got well, this has reverb. I guess they both have reverb. Yeah, similar. You know, budget. Yes, that's the budget. That's my answer, and it's a good one. I can say that with confidence. Jay Craig says the Tone Talk was almost 4 hours, the one for the rack gear. All right, that's well, I don't know if I have 4 hours to watch that, but interesting. I do want to check it out. I should probably just watch a little bit and then skip around and then go all the way to the end and see if there's alcohol involved, right? Nice to see the hair getting longer, says Dan the Horse. Thanks. Yeah, it's I got a haircut this week, and I feel great about it. Didn't screw up my hair. Just looks better. Exactly what I wanted. Still letting it grow. Get another 4 inches or something, and I'll be happy. Long again. Why not? It's still there. It's still viable. I'm still viable. That's what we're really saying here, isn't it? Just trying to, avoid the midlife crisis. Where's the video of you at Fuji, says Zachary. If you Google Tyoshi, you can't spell that, I bet. Tsuyoshi, Fuji 2015, you will find probably some stuff of this show. There's a DVD of it, but it's like 4 DVDs long because it was an all-night concert. So there's a concert movie. I say DVD. Who buys DVDs anymore? But I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. I don't think so. Probably not. But there's some fan videos. And interesting about Japan is there's at least at the 930 Club they give you cupcakes, says Ethan Rex. Yeah, I love the 930 Club. It's a classic. Great venue in DC. One of my favorite places to play with the moving stage. You can move it around for different sized shows. Interesting thing about Japan, they don't really take pictures at the shows. That's a thing where cameras aren't really, and everybody doesn't do it. It's like they don't really. There's some videos of people doing it in the crowd, but I mean, the theater shows we would do or the arena shows, it's very, very little fan video ever comes out of that because they don't allow it. And Japan is a very sort of obedient society. They pay attention to the rules and the wishes of, the powers that be. And Tyoshi doesn't like it. And I love that because not everybody's up there with their damn phone all the time. Everybody's got their arms in the air and it feels like the 70s. It's rad. So you're not distracted watching the show through a phone. Another thing I just love about playing there, it's a really different experience. Let's see. We've got Bill there in the super chat. And thanks, dude. He says, have a great Sunday. Thanks, man. You too. Don't go. Stay for a little while. Thank you for doing the super chat as well. This is all going towards my coffee fund. Bomb Track says, do you play bass on the songs you make? Always. And I love it. I love playing bass these days. One of my favorite things to do. I'd love to do a tour on bass. I would love it, actually. It'd be such a pleasure. Doing tour on bass. SVT, P bass, or my Warwick, which I love, a tuner, yeah, and a cable. No, maybe a nice wireless. Get paid the same as the guitar player. He's got all that stuff. He's got 10 parts to worry about, and I just have one. Hopefully get paid the same. That's pretty cool. What new things are you working on the next several weeks, says T-Mitz? Videos for a bunch of different things. Number one, I have a Gladio pedal here. That's a single channel Gladio. Working on that. Got this coming out. This is the multi-cab version 3.5 from Sackless. Right. Forgot the name for a second. So this is a hybrid analog and digital pedal that's got kind of it's one of those pedals that allows you to go direct with your pedal board essentially. And this kind of does the amp sim, clean amp, so you run overdrives and stuff into it. And then it's got cab sim. That part is digital, cab sim. So hybrid analog digital, but it's also got this ambience control, which is nice. It's like a simple sort of room or hall, maybe a big room, small hall sort of reverb. And you turn that up and you can add. So let's say you just want to practice with your pedal board and run your overdrives into it. You can do that. Or if you got a good preamp style pedal on your board, or you can disable the preampy stuff It's got power amp sim in it too. You can disable the preamp and power amp simulation stuff and just use it for the cab sims and the ambience if you want that. The cab sims are set, so there's 8 different sims in there, but you can kind of fine tune them using a couple different like sort of virtual microphone controls here, as well as like open, closed, and semi-open back cabinet switch that just kind of fine tunes the low end. Really, that's all analog. But then you've got your digital speaker simulation. So you get 8 cabs there, selection of 112s and a 410, a couple of 412s, that kind of thing. Straight up cab sim. If you've got an original Sur reactive load or something like that, you want to have a simple cab sim box to either go into your recording interface or maybe for live or into a set of studio monitors, and you don't want to mess around a lot with other reverbs and stuff, you can use the ambience on it. It's nice feature set. It's got a headphone jack. I feel like I'm doing the whole demo right now. That's coming this week. Maybe I don't even need to put out the video. I just did it, except for the playing part. What else? Oh, Celestion. Their plugin for IRs. What is it called? Speaker Mix Pro. Video of that coming on the 25th. So I think when's that? On Thursday, I think. So a few things to do this week. Lots of videos, basically. Having said all that, I just bought a bike, and I'm excited about that. And I'm going to try and get some more exercise in, too. So I'm trying to get more balanced. A little bit more balance in life. Stan Muso says 80s Les Paul with a Kaler trim and locking nut. If you had it, would you replace it with the bridge and tailpiece leaving the route hole? I hate that kind of stuff because it's like I feel like it's always a compromise. Like I don't like the idea. I know Gilmore did it on his Black Strat, but like once you got a Kaler and you do the route and then they fill it and oh God, I don't know. I guess you can do it. Leaving the route hole. I probably wouldn't. I would probably find if you really want to do it, is it a solid finish? I mean, is a way you could reshoot the top? Maybe then, like if it was if 80s Les Paul, if you could reshoot it as a gold top and, you had a talented luthier that could fill that hole and then put a Tune-o-matic and a stop tail on there. You see that guy, what's his name? Player Grade Vintage on Instagram. He's always doing these. It's generally 50s Les Pauls and stuff that are basket cases or 60s Gibson guitars, and he'll do crazy restorations of guitars that have been hacked and all kinds of stuff, and he'll try and bring them back to and then sell them. Bring them back to some sort of cool condition that's playable. But anyways, I would if you really want to do it and you love the guitar, I would say fill the hole, shoot it as a gold top, no matter what the color is, because that'll look cool. If you can find a good, somebody to do proper lacquer and do it right and stuff, and it'll be great at that point, I would think. I rather than leave the bridge on it, I don't know. Maybe you just leave it and use it with the Kaler, as is. That's the thing. Okay, so I back routed my Jackson in the 80s, and that's kind of not as radical, I guess, as doing it to a Les Paul. But I hate the fact that I did that. That I had original, essentially Charvel American, San Dimas body, and then I routed anything out of it. Really bothers me that I did that. And I go round and round, like, do I fill it? And no, just leave it. Like, it is what it is now. It's done, and play it occasionally and enjoy it for what it is. I think about, do I get a new body for it? Should I just get a black body or whatever and just put all the hardware in? And then no, because it's the body's original. And so I hate these things, where it's like filling holes. Don't I know it's a pain in the ass, thinking about it. Anyways, okay. What else we got here? Get some stuff, some questions here. I'm gonna go down the bottom of the chat and work my way backwards. Mr. Kiyami says, I just saw a new Game Changer pedal coming out this summer. Light pedal and optical spring reverb. Have you heard about it? I have. There might be one sitting very close to me right now. That's all I'll say. No, yeah. It's going to be interesting. Let's see here. I can't believe a fret job costs $600 now, says Scott. So I guess it depends on who's doing your frets. That sounds like a lot to me. I'm sure you can find people that won't charge you that. Stainless steel might cost you you know, because it's harder on tools and takes longer and stuff. Modern Vintage says Beth Luthiers in LA. Well, for me, it's John Sir, but my friend Eric at Lush Guitar, I'll generally take things to him for electronics stuff and doing, you know, like basic repairs and stuff like that. He's really cool. There's a guy, I'll have to find out a different name for you. There's another, my friend Jamie Kime has a guy that he's using that he really recommends, says is fantastic. Renson Guitar in Studio City, Renson. Norik's been around forever and teched for 1 million people. Like used to, you know, work for Sting and all kinds of people. They're great over there. I think his fellow that he works with is named Brett, maybe, if he's still there. It's been a minute since I've been over there, but 20 years ago I was going there, and I believe it's still there. And that would be a good, good option. Yeah, I missed a super chat evidently. Oh, I don't think so, Ben. We talked about this. Saying that would love to see your band play at the Fillmore. No, I told my whole story about the Fillmore and getting a beer thrown at my pedal board. But thank you for the super chat, Robert. I do appreciate it, and thank you, Ben, for being here as always and helping out. Yeah. Definitely try the new Fractal software. I heard they were coming out with a new thing. Definitely a huge leap forward for amp tone and feel. I bet they were waiting for Quad Cortex to release to respond with this update. So I should try it? Okay. I'll update my Axe 3 and give it a go. I haven't tried it yet. Can you recommend a good tube combo amp that takes pedals that's good for rock and metal and under 800? I don't know. Anybody got any recommendations? Good for rock and metal. I mean, I would probably try and find a 5150 of some sort for rock and metal. Yeah, that would be maybe like a used, or, you know, the 5153, or maybe the old PV, which was heavy as hell, but they were pretty cool. They had a closed back 212 in the bottom. They probably work pretty good for metal. The original 5150 combo, but I don't know if they're probably not that cheap, are they? They're probably really expensive because, you know, it's 5150 and they're like a coveted metal amp. What else? Probably something Mesa, you know, be good for rock and metal. Maybe like can anybody recommend like a good, like maybe one of the, like the 525 or something like that? Wasn't that a thing? Or didn't they make a 25 watt Mark 5 in a combo? That would probably work pretty good for rock and metal. Not going to be $800 though, is it? Ugh, I don't know. Anybody got any ideas? I'm a little stumped. Let's see. Somebody saying sell it and get another Les Paul would be better, says Michael Berry. That's for the guy with the Kaler on his Les Paul, the 80s Les Paul. Yeah, if it's not, like, I kind of agree, but it sounds, you know, generally speaking, like a guitar that somebody's had, maybe he's had it since it was new or something, then there's sentimental value and you don't want to sell, you know. So, it's tough. The Music Astronaut is up there in the super duper chat. He says, how do you manage family and such? You know, dude, the reality is, I mean, without getting too deep into it, I don't have family down here. My family's in Canada, and a lot of people probably wonder like how I managed to do all this stuff at my age, my advanced age. The reality is that my family's is my mother and father have passed away, which is really sad and bums me out daily. But that's the truth. I've got a sister that's in Edmonton. And I've got aunts and uncles and stuff, and I try and stay in touch with everybody, but it's difficult when you live in a different country, and especially during the pandemic. I haven't been home, and you know, I haven't been up there in ages. So, but as far as, you know, I don't have kids, and it's like, it's actually not so, because of all that, it's slightly depressing, I suppose, to some out there that have families. But I'm a kind of a little bit of a lone wolf down here, is what I'm getting at. So it's not hard to balance, because that's it. Henrik is in the top chat as well, and he says, have you tried Boss Katanas? That could be a good amp, I guess, in the under 800, you know, that takes pedals, maybe, You guys like those? Somebody's recommending the orange rocker combo as well for that. That could be, yeah, Black Star. Somebody's saying, I don't try a lot of these amps, so, it's not something I have a hell of a lot of experience in. Combos under $800, I would say. The one I have is more of a, I've got a Princeton Reverb here, and that would fit the bill. It's $800 or $900, I think, but it wouldn't fit the bill for metal. Rock, sure, with a pedal, but it's not really a metal thing. When I think metal, that's why I went to the 51. I was like, I'm thinking about the best thing that and to me, it's like those original 5150s with the closed back and the two greenback style Sheffield speakers. They just kicked ass for that sound. Like, it was like, they sound like a baby. I mean, they weighed like 120 pounds, but they were really good for that sound. Glenn's recommending an Express 550. As far as Henrik, as far as the katanas, I haven't messed with them a lot. I've messed with one of the Next Tones, which is pretty cool, even less expensive. I know John Sir likes his katana, and he's like, "This is pretty fun." It's like, for what it is, it sounds good and it's decent, and so he likes it, and he's a picky guy, so it could be good. Tony's saying that old 5150 combos are pretty affordable, 900 to 1K on. Well, that's your surefire ticket there to in a combo of metal. Now, if you could, you're dealing with the weight, because I'm telling you, they're heavy, but they rip for that sound. It's a good amp for that sound. Somebody's saying a JVM 50 watt, maybe Jet City, a modded Jet City. That could be cool. What about an Origin modded by Friedman? That could be cool. I heard one and it sounded great. It came out really good. So that's something. Do you find scale length affects your playing one way or another, says Mike. He's up there in the super duper chat. I think of it's more a tone thing. Like I met Billy Gibbons once. Apologies to those that have already heard the story, but I met him in Trader Joe's in line, and I introduced myself because I just had to. I was in line in front of him. He came in behind me, I think, and I said I'd seen him in the store, and I was like, oh, I can't bother him, And then he got in line behind me, I think, is my memory of it. And I said, I just have to introduce myself. I'm such a big fan. And he said, "Are you a player, son?" And I said, "Yes, I am, sir." And he said, "Are you a Gibson scale player or a Fender scale player?" And I thought that was such a interesting question. He asked me about scale length. And then I think of like some of the guitars that he's had built over the years, like Tellys, but he makes them try and sound like he always wanted everything to sound like Pearly Gates. So he uses EQs and all kinds of crazy things to get to that point. And I thought that we just went straight into that, like what an interesting conversation. I said, it's interesting that you asked me that. I don't know if he might have not known what he was getting into with a geek like me, all of us hanging out here talking. So it's like a longer conversation that you can have in the line at Trader Joe's. But I said, I just had a guitar built, and it was a Sir T that I still have. It's in the other room. That's kind of the precursor to my signature guitar, really. It was a T with a mahogany body, mahogany neck, rosewood fingerboard, maple top, but bolt-on 25.5 Fender scale, right? Fender style scale. And I said, I just had this guitar built out of essentially all Les Paul woods. Yes, bolt-on neck, but all mahogany and all that stuff. And I said, it still sounds like a Fender, basically, because of the scale length, I think, that 25.5 scale. You can use all the woods and all that stuff, but it has that snap that is a different thing than the slightly, I think of Les Pauls as being slightly softer attack or a little gooier. And I think of the Fender thing, slightly longer scale, as having a certain attack, regardless of pickups and wood and everything else. The scale length has this effect on the sound. Like when we think of a Fender not a Jazzmaster, a Jaguar, which is short scale, right? We don't think of a Jaguar ever as having like a Strat style sound. Sure, it's got single coils and stuff like that, and it's great when Johnny Marr uses one, but it's a different thing. I never think of it as having that Fender snap. It's a different kind of sound. So that's more the tonal thing. And then that will dictate when I'll pick up a guitar at a shorter, longer scale. If I want a certain attack or sound, yeah. let's see. What else we got here? Egnator, somebody's recommending. Oh, yeah. Those Egnator combos, they were pretty cool. They had like 4 channels or 3 channels, right? I remember those. That could be, if you could find one of those used, that might work good under 800 for rock and metal. I swear the best is going to be that PV515212. Bent Tom agrees with me. See? He agrees. PVJSX, that would probably work good too. Yeah, that one. Good recommendations. Anyone else think orange amps are too loose and gritty? I've never liked their sound. Well, that is kind of their sound. And, you know, tight and vicious as opposed to huge like an ogre coming at you, you know, and with like not afraid of that low end and doesn't have to be tight. It's a different sound and it works well for some, you know, you see the types of bands, I guess the stoner and kind of doom or whatever, like, is that a thing? I sound like I know what I'm talking about, but or at least I'm trying to. Maybe I don't sound like I know what I'm talking about, but anyways, when I think of that type of sound, you know, Kiesel or something like that, they don't, you know, there's a certain segment of metal and of heavy rock that wanted tight and aggressive and in tune and very, you know, and then there's a certain segment that was not afraid of being out of tune and was mushy and kind of would go to the neck pickup and play up high on the low E string and bend out of tune and things, you know, and that's a certain sound that once I actually had to start learning Soundgarden material and became, and you know, I sort of became aware of it more and more throughout my tenure of playing with Chris Cornell, that was not something to shy away from. It was actually something to move towards, like those thicker sounds, and was part of the magic of some of the, you know, Slaves and Bulldozers, take for example, or something, you know, and all the bending and stuff and the kind of the out of tune and the, that was part of that sound. You know, we saw, you know, Kim using like a SG style guitar, you know, short scale with that sound and kind of, you know, embracing that thing. So it depends what you're doing, you know. For a lot of people, an orange isn't going to work, and I would have mostly agree with you from my style of playing that's not something that I really like. But then again, I know there's a great video that Rhett Schull on orange amps, the orange sound, and he's got Rick Beato involved, and Rick knows about those amps and has a few, and I learned a lot from watching that video about which ones I would dig and which ones I wouldn't, which ones to steer away from, because they're not all created equal. And you know, I'm talking vintage orange here, not the newer stuff, which is a little bit different. In the newer amps, they've kind of still embraced that fuzzy, big low end thing, I think. But they're a little more friendly, I think, across the board. You know, they've got, you know, obviously clean channels and stuff like that. But anyway, Rhett's video is on the older orange amps, and it's a really, really good, it's a lot of insight there into, you know, if you were looking for an old orange or you wanted to know, because that's one of the amps that I don't really know. It's like Sound City or Sims Watts or these different amps that you would see and you're like, what's the story behind these? Or London, what were those other ones? London Power. I love seeing those old heads, you know. That I used to be in this band called Sparkler in the 90s, and they had some Sims Watts that they bought probably from Black Market Music in LA, I think, you know, Sims Watts. They were like these, you know, crazy looking cool amp heads and cabinets. And I remember Rick Parker, who's a, you know, great producer and cool guy and appreciated good aesthetic and stuff, mainly bought them for the way they looked. He didn't even care about the way they sounded, really. They just looked cool for videos and photo shoots and things, and they were unique. Sims Watts, what's the hell's that? What's that, you know? But I don't have a great grasp on a lot of these amps some of them from the late 60s and the 70s that on what they actually sounded like, you know, the different Sound City heads. I read a little bit about London Power, which is evidently they were kind of made cheap, and I think they were made in Holland, but they sure look cool. You see that, you know, some that are like baby blue with the London Power, and they look like a plexi, basically. Kind of neat looking. I wonder if you could get one and then like go through it and spruce it up. Screwed Circuits, Tom says Texas is the new Edmonton weather-wise, except they're not cut out for, you know, they don't have the infrastructure. That's the only problem, right? But it's true. I was reading about the whole polar vortex thing. It's pretty interesting. generally it's a vortex. It stays tight around the poles. And then like, because of things like global warming and everything, we're now getting these swings where it goes way down into the States and it's very unpredictable. And that's what you're seeing in Texas and stuff. It's science. What do you guys think of the Mars landing this week? Not to get off of guitars too much, but oh God, man, I just love that stuff so much. It's so cool that I watched the whole, 7 minutes of terror, they call it, the descent into the atmosphere and then the landing. And it still just blows my mind. They know how to do that stuff. It's so cool, and the thing's like the size of basically like a small SUV, and it's got that little helicopter they landed too and stuff. And it's so cool. It's really, really exciting that they know how to do that stuff. Let's get those people on the Texas power grid, fix it up. Science. We need science. I heard your sister likes metal. Is she single? Says my niece heard. She's not. She's married, but yeah, she's a huge metal fan. That's how I got into all that stuff. I mean, really, I heard it around the house. Growing up was, Thin Lizzy and Maiden and Judas Priest and Ozzy, huge Ozzy and Sabbath fan. Anything new that was coming out. So I knew about Guns N' Roses before anybody, I feel like, because she knew about them before anybody. So I was hearing it like, 6 months before you ever heard anything about them. She'd been reading Kerrang and heard about this band, and because it took a long time for Appetite to actually blow up. So I've talked about that before, but Metallica, I mean, she was way into Metallica like before it was the thing, when it was still super underground and like, San Francisco club band basically. And she knew all about it. And I'd hear this sound coming out of her bedroom of these records, and it was aggressive as hell. It was just like, what is that? It was almost scary, because it was so new, it's fresh, it's pretty cool. Like that music, that heavy, and aggressive. Mike says that he's been jonesing for an ombre. Good thing not available in a head for now. Yeah, it'd be really cool in a head. I mean, I actually like the fact that I've got it in a combo and I can just, use it that way, because it's a great sound, as you heard in my video. I hope it's really usable through the internal speaker. It sounds great, and then also through a 412 sounds great. So both tones are really great, I think. So ombre is, for those that don't know, is the Sir take on a early 60s brown, right? Brown is what I meant. Deluxe circuit. Which evidently was allegedly used on early ZZ Top, and Billy liked that amp. And it's kind of like a little baby Marshall, like a little sleeper Marshall before Marshall existed. A great sounding amp. Really fun amp to play through with absolutely nothing. Just plug in a Les Paul and turn it up a bit, and takes off into feedback. It sounds great. A couple of the more kind of, off the beaten path amps from that period, NARB and Kitchen Marshalls. Yeah, totally. Interesting amps. Park, of course. They're probably the best known of that era, right? You had your Vox, Marshall, High Watt, and then you had your NARB and Park, of course. And the whole story of Park's really interesting. Never, you can read about it, but and then of course Sound City and all these different amps. It's pretty cool. Let's see here. Here's another question. Tone 5DP777. I had the aux box, and although it sounded good, there was a lot of choices tweaking for my liking. See, that can be a thing, where you then got the Sir Reactive Load IR, and wow, so easy to use and great tones. Your thoughts? Yeah, man, that's a thing, and that's where UA is a great company, and I use their stuff, and I really enjoy it. You can see my aux sitting right there. I really enjoy it. And I also, as part of my job, I guess these days, trying all these different pieces of gear and stuff, to recognize and recommend to folks that have different priorities and different personalities when it comes to what they're interested in. And I say to Sir, like, with the reactive load, because of the limitations of the company. Like, so in other words, with UA, it's a big company and their software, they've been developing software forever now. They've got, probably a large team of people that do that and focus on that. So that's going to be part of their approach always, the types of things that software can give you, whereas with Sir, they've got Kevin, and he's getting good at, digital stuff and DSP and all that, but it's not, imagine the amount of effort it would take to develop the kind of iPad app and everything, and, Mac app and everything that goes with the aux, and that level of, moving the mics around and the compressor and the reverb and everything that's built in. And it's like, let them do that, because that's what they're good at. And then you do what you're good at. Make it simple. We've got IRs. That's a great technology that for a lot of people that probably don't need more. I remember hearing about Steve Stevens getting his, Sir told me that when he got his reactive load IR, that he had hit him up like right then, like later that day when he got it, or the next day or something, and said, this thing's amazing. I had a session to do for a client in Germany, and he said he got it, plugged it in, tried a couple of the cabs with a Marshall or maybe his signature amp or whatever, and tried it, and that's great. And he tracked it apart, sent it to Germany, and the producer was like, awesome, super happy. He's like, this is amazing, just to get that sound like right away. And I think for a lot of folks, that's all they want. They just want to get the job done, and they want to play more, and they want to think about tweaking less. And that's always my thing with the modelers. Active FX, Kemper, Helix, now Quad Cortex, which one's better? They all sound good, and you can get great sounds out of any of these devices these days for what they are. There's these other factors that are huge, and I don't want to sound like a broken record because I bring it up all the time, but the kind of the ergonomic, how into tweaking you are, how into parameters you are or not, is a huge factor in whether or not you're going to get on with these devices. So I think that's totally a thing. Okay. Ben Tom said, how about old Parks? Yeah, they sound great. They do. There's essentially, fun Marshalls, some different things going on. We got 640 people online, which I'm super stoked about. I will say right now, then let's talk about who I'm going to have next week. I'm super excited that Richard Fortis is going to come on next week. He's a amazing guitar player, Guns N' Roses, and I saw him on Tone Talk. And we've been kind of, we are Instagram buddies, and we'll comment on each other's stuff sometimes, but I've never actually really spoken with him. And I just really, I liked him on Tone Talk a lot. He seems like a terrific guy, and his work ethic and everything. Didn't know that he'd actually, I think, started on maybe viola or cello, or I can't remember. So he plays. He's what I call a serious musician. Besides being a stellar guitar player, and obviously a huge geek about gear and amps and guitars. He's always posting cool photos, and we maybe sometimes forget that he's been doing the GNR thing for like 20 years, I think now. So like sometime around 2000 is when he got involved. So it's an incredible long run, and I'm sure he'll have some great stories and also some great insight into gear. And I can't wait to just chat with him, because the first time I get to chat with him will be with you guys. So it's going to be a hopefully cool, fun, enlightening discussion. So anyways, next week, Richard will be joining. So be sure and be here next week. I'm going to put up the watch page for it good and early, probably tomorrow or the next day. So there'll be lots of, you can set a reminder and all that using when you see it pop up in your feed, hopefully, if you're a subscriber. Yeah, it should be fun. Putting in a little bit more effort trying to get some guests, so asking some people to do it and stuff. So like I say, every few weeks or so, probably try and have a guest. Taylor says the little Nux Air amp is super handy. Nux. I always say Nux. It's Nux, isn't it? Yeah. Super handy for practicing with a toddler running around. Thanks for that video. You bet. It's good stuff. They make good stuff. I have a video coming for one of their modelers. I saw a thing recently, a comment on one of my YouTube videos for the Quad Cortex, where somebody was making a light critique, saying basically like, show us some things that are less expensive, because not everybody can afford $1,600 for one of these things. And I had to say, well, I did recently do the Pod Go, and I have done like these, I didn't even think of, I have done the Nux little amps and things that are like $99. And and occasionally I do plugins, and those are cheap if you've got a computer, and plugins, whatever. Some of these plugins are well under $100. So I feel like I've done some of these less expensive modelers, but anyway, New X, what they have a new one, and I've got a video coming out for that where I'm going to do a song like I always do, using one of these things that's, because it's not everybody does want to spend that much, so let's get some tones out of a smaller unit. So I made some presets for them recently for one of their units. It's like a straight up cleany chorusy 80s kind of thing, and some JCM 800 kind of rhythm tones and stuff, and a lead sound, I think. And I'll probably just use those presets and do a track with them, and you can check it out and see what you think. You can be like, Pete, that sucks, or it was okay, or that's fucking brilliant, or whatever. Anywhere in between. That was horrible. No, hopefully you won't say that. Hopefully I'll do a good job, because I haven't done it yet, so I don't want to jinx myself. Okay, what else we got here? Have you heard of En's Guitars? Small builder of electrics. He also makes high-end acoustics. I have not. I haven't heard of those. I'm sorry. Preston says that he uses an iPad and Bias FX 2 with Bias Amp 2 for all my live stuff. Easy, sounds awesome. No one can tell it's digital. At the end of the day, if you're getting your work done, that's all that really matters, right? Any owners of Kiesel guitars, are they good or just hype? I don't really understand the whole Kiesel story. Like, as far as they were born out of Carvin, right? I think. And is it like folks from Carvin that went and did it? I don't know that much about them, but I see them being played by, it seems like they made a pretty good move. Like, so maybe saw a part of the market that would be a niche for them to move into. And I think that they've pretty successfully done that. So that's cool. Like, maybe even more successfully than Carvin was towards the end. Because I think there was always this bit of a stigma with the Carvin name. Not that there was anything wrong with it or anything like that, but they had it with their guitars. They had a bit of a stigma, I think. And to rename it and then move towards the kind of like the 7-string metal guitars. And isn't they Kiesel do a lot of that? I think. It seems like they've done pretty well. Blair is saying the early 70s Trainer YBA1 Bassmaster. Yeah, I mean, those for sure, the Trainer amps we were talking about, for those that are just joining, kind of the off-brand amps that, besides Marshall Vox and High Watt, the Sims Watts and the London Power and the Park being probably the biggest one. The Sound City Trainer definitely, falls into this category of making great amps. The YBA1 Bassmaster. I've never actually tried one, but there's one around here that I can try, and I want to give one a try, plug it into a load box or whatever, and load it down, fucking crank it up, see what this thing does. That's what I want to do. Sorry, I got all passionate about it there for a second. What else have we got here? Have you had experience with Plek? Yes. Mixed feelings about the Plek for me. I had a guitar done by a luthier in LA. It was like a guy in Westwood a number of years ago. This is going back 20 years. But when the Plek first came out, because it's been out for a long time now. I mean, maybe it wasn't 20 years ago. Maybe it was 15. But anyway, this guy Pleked a Strat for me. And it was helpful on that guitar because the guitar was it was a custom shop Strat, seafoam green, and it had a bird's eye maple neck that, as they tend to do with bird's eye, now they roast, but before the days of roasting, they would sometimes twist because they weren't the most reliable. This is the reason why you can't get a Sur neck that's bird's eye that's not roasted, because they won't do it because they're just not stable, generally speaking. So you run into problems with customers. But anyway, the neck did a twist. I don't know why that is a thing, but anyways, on the bass side there was a nice little bit of relief, and on the treble side there was a hump, and so buzzing on the high E string wasn't so great, and it was unpleasant to sight down the neck and see that, and I was like, I don't know. But anyway, I took it and they plucked it, and into the frets it dressed the proper, because the Plek can do that, which is pretty amazing. A problem neck, it'll dress that hump right out of the frets, and it worked. It still bothered me when I would sight down the neck. It would still look like the twist, because it was still in there, of course, but dressed into the frets was the, so that was cool. But yeah, I know what you mean, boxy, like the Yeah, there's something about the way, like, I just love a fret that is not too mowed down and flat. And, I love a perfectly rounded, really tall fret. Like, that's just, sometimes even frets from the factory, even from Sir, I'll be like, if you do a guitar for me, just leave the frets like as tall as you can. Like, and they, I think their guitars, I don't really know. I don't want to say, I think it's some combination of Plek and, because they have Plek machine, but they do some combination of Plek and some hand stuff, I think, and I don't really understand which is which these days. Like what they're doing. Their guitars, generally speaking, are the frets are great. They're known for great frets, but I'll still ask if they're doing a guitar for me, like, can you just leave those frets as tall as you possibly can and as round as you possibly can on the top, with a narrow where it's meeting the string. It's great for intonation, and also I just love the feel. So I just have mixed feelings about the Plek. I'd rather have, at the end of the day, if it's a good neck and there's not problems that maybe the Plek can help with, I prefer if somebody just does it. That's amazing. What do you think about Helix in 2021? I think it's still great. There's very few other than Boss that have a device out that's as small as, say, the Stomp. What a great little thing it is. How usable is that? I mean, it gets great sounds. You can do 6 or 7 effects at a time or whatever, and it's an amazing little thing. The full-size Helix is still really cool with the expression pedal built in, and there's not many companies that have a format like I don't even, with the FM3 and stuff, it's smaller, but you got to add expression pedals if you want that, and I generally do. So it's like, then it might as well be a little bigger. I don't know. I still, I love the FM3 too. It sounds great, but I think the Helix is still really, for what it is, it's still really, really, really cool. It sounds great. Yeah, I got one sitting right here. I'm looking at it. Good unit. These things, they're so damn powerful, and they sound good, and they offer so many. It's like, 5, 6, 7 years into these things being out, I still feel like I haven't scratched the surface of all the things they can do. So I still feel like it's good. It's not like, oh, I've exhausted all the possibilities of that device. No, they're really good devices. I don't know where you go with it. It's like, it's kind of, I love all these devices. And as some people say, it can tend to be a little bit of a race to the bottom, especially when you get into the lower end of the market, because they're so powerful and they're going to get less and less expensive, as happens with computers. And it's a tough market because it's like more and more of them are going to come out. It's like, I think as far as developing gear, I'd rather keep my head in the tube amp land and fill that niche that still, there's a niche there. 663 people online. This is awesome. Let's get it up to 700, I hope, today. I'll reiterate that next week, special guest, Richard Fortis is coming on. By the way, he'll be here a little bit later on. So if you want to show up late, that's cool. Or you can hang at the beginning to see me get my coffee in and start to speed up to the point where I'm yammering like this. But yeah, he's going to show up about noon, I think, next week. And should be fun having a guest. It's been a minute since I had Mr. Frampton on, and Jennifer Batten and all the other fun folks that have been on the show from time to time. Will Helix add a capture feature, says Brett. I don't know. It would strike me as something that maybe I don't know if you could do that after the fact. I mean, I know like Axe Effects, they added tone match. Did they call it that? Or is an EQ essentially you could put in and it would listen to, they sort of recommended with the Axe Effects back in the day, you dial in a plexi sound you like that's close to the the sound of your plexi, and then you tone match, right? It would apply an EQ essentially. I think it's similar to the Positive Grid thing, was similar, essentially doing a match EQ kind of thing. But a full-on capture thing, I don't know. I think wasn't it like you play a recorded? I can't even remember how tone match worked. It's been a long time since I've done it. I did a video on it back in the day, like tone matching my SL68. I felt like I should go back and watch that and see how close I came. It was 2011 or something that I made that. So it's ages ago. James Bell says, I'm beginning to think that drive pedal stacking, he's up there in the super chat, is a mug's game. Endless fiddling that just disimproves my sound. Maybe a boost into a drive, but that's about it. That's basically exactly what I do. I'll use my Archer in front of one of the various drives on my board. or I'll use something like my Unit 67 into one of the drives on my board to kind of hit the drive a little bit harder. But beyond that, I don't do things where I combine two overdrives, really. I don't really do that. I guess I combine two overdrives. If I do a Klon in front of a Bogner Blue, I guess that's combining, or in front of a genre, I guess that's combining, but I don't do it I generally do that to hit it as I would an amp for a solo. I'll boost using, the only time I've got the Klon thing on the Archer that I use is for leads. I don't ever use it for rhythm playing. Yeah, that's that. So I agree with you. I mean, I think dude, I'm an amp distortion guy. There's a thread on the gear page about it right now. Like, is amp distortion overrated? No, because that's how all these great sounds happened. That were great recorded guitar sounds. Some were done using overdrives and stuff, pedals into clean amps, but not as many. You'll never convince me that as many classic guitar tones were done that way. I mean, sometimes it's a combination of range master into normal channel of an AC30 for Brian May, or whatever, Richie Blackmore boosting his amp with essentially what was a giant pedal, but it was just not in pedal form, and a Kai tape deck, right? Yngwie Malmsteen with his OD250 in front of a Marshall, still some really unique tones, but at the core there was always this great amp. And the fascination these days with the kind of the clean amp and running drives in front, it just doesn't yield as interesting sounds to me, I don't think. I still think there's a real thing with the high voltage electronics all working in harmony inside an amp, 250 volts at least, or whatever of the preamp tubes and whatever it is, that creating the overdrive has this super dynamic organic thing where you can roll the volume down. That's why a plexi cleans up to nothing when you roll it down and gets all glassy like Eddie Van Halen, right? You roll it up and it roars at you. And here's the other thing about that you are never going to get, and I've been planning on demonstrating this in a video. I'm going to miss some top chats here, and I don't want to. Peter Lasis was asking about my conversation with Larry Dimarzio, so I'll touch on that in a second here. And John is saying, just got my Strat back, 2 SSL 5s and a Thornbucker Plus S switching Wilkinson saddles. Awesomeness, perfect PAF tone. Sounds great. Split. Captor X thoughts. Just really quick, Captor X is a pretty good box. I think my number one reactive load device is the Sur. I think the Captor X is pretty cool though. That's my honest, the best reactive load on the market, I think, is the Sur. Two Notes has always done a commendable job, and they make great products, and I've used them as well. So just depends on which way you want to go. You can use it and get some really good results, I think, for sure. I hope that's helpful. That's just my honest opinion. So Larry Dimarzio, I'll come back to that in just a second, Peter. But I was going to say, if you listen to the sound of, I could maybe just demonstrate this, although I don't know if it would come through the microphone. So I'm going to do it in a video. If you listen to the sound of anything plexi, or old Marshall, my 71 down here, cranks, and you run it into a load box in the room, and you don't have a speaker cabinet in the room, so you can't hear it. The sound the amplifier makes, we're talking like, anywhere from AC/DC on up to Eddie Van Halen levels. The sound the amp makes when you hit a chord, you can hear the transformer buzzing away in the room. Those of you that use reactive loads and stuff, you know what I'm talking about. First time you heard that, you were probably worried, right? But the sound it makes goes like, kind of, you can hear it in the room, and you'll hear it, and that's like the thing is sagging beyond its ability to deliver clean power. And you hear that happen in the amplifier, and you can hear as you hit a chord that buzz and the way that it changes and evolves, as the chord fades. This is the thing that you will never get out of, to me, preamp distortion. And any kind of pedal either, which is even one step further removed, I think, than the tube electronics or high voltage stuff. That sag and that sound of all that stuff working in the amp translates through what you hear through the speaker directly, right? When you hear, the chord in, the beginning of Mean Street by Van Halen, that G, of the two strings played open, the D and the G, and you hear it go, it sounds like nothing here. And when you hear it through the Marshall, it goes, yeah, like it evolves, and it's like, it's like a thing coming at you, right? You know, a creature that's alive, right? And that's the sound that we, you know, if you can replicate that digitally somehow, that thing, I just don't ever hear that quite, you know. And when you roll the volume down, it cleans up right away. It's because the whole thing is acting as this giant compressor that's working way beyond its ability to deliver clean power when you nail it full volume, you know. And that's a magic, you know. It's such a cool thing about amp distortion that that's just why that's my go-to thing. It feels different and it sounds different when you play it than, say, a Soldano, which is a great amp and has its own kind of sound, but it's a different sound that preamp gains. It's more linear. The distortion of these modern gain staged amps is more linear. Even the Jose thing doesn't do that thing quite, that organic thing that the Plexi does. And maybe why Eddie back in the day, you know, didn't use anything other than his Marshall, because he was probably friggin' used to that thing, that where that evolving tone that, and then eventually guys, you know, a lot of guitar players as they got older tended to drift more towards the preamp gain based amps. It was easier, it was more consistent, it was less problematic because you're not running this thing beyond, you know, it's like running a, you know, a race car at full tilt all the time, you know, where it was so hopefully that makes sense, you know. But the sound of a preamp gain, it's a different thing. It's a more linear, more predictable, and maybe a little bit more homogenized than that constantly shifting dynamic of the crazy compressed thing working way beyond its ability to deliver clean power. Okay. I'm so far behind in getting to some of these super chats. Coming back to Peter with the Larry Dimarzio question. Lucas Bialy says, have you ever heard of Lutnick custom guitars? I'm waiting for my sort of copy of your Sir from this guy. Well, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I have not heard of his guitars. I wonder where he's from. But anyway, you're somewhere in Europe, so I assume, or sorry, you're in the UK, aren't you? I assume he's over there somewhere. A lot of UK custom guitar builders that I don't know about. My friend James from the Classic Rock Show is always getting these guitars built by talented luthiers over there, you know, and I find it interesting. It's a definite thing over there. Larry Dimarzio, I spoke to for a little while on the phone last week. We had a nice talk. He confirmed to me that the broken pickup in Eddie's guitar was in the 5150 guitar. So evidently he'd had a string caught underneath the, you know, the pickup at some time, and it had messed up the pickup, but he liked the way it sounded. So when Larry tried that guitar, it had one coil that was reading some crazy reading and had and he liked that sound. And so we talked a little bit about that. And then I sent him videos. I said, I find this interesting because I said, I always heard around 82 or so, or 83, kind of around getting the diver down period. If you listen to some of those shows, that Largo show or the one from Brazil, there's a few shows online where you can hear Ed playing, and his sound is very clean, especially during like a song like maybe Unchained or something where you're used to hearing the dirty, you know, and his sound sounds so kind of twangy and almost clean on his solo. It's very clean. He's playing amazing. Even with that, it's probably loud, but it's kind of clean and sounds kind of like a telly almost or something. So I was always under the impression that maybe the pickup in the Frankenstein was broken. Hey man, who knows? Maybe he took the pickup out of that guitar and put it in the 5150 guitar, and that's why it was broken. But I always, you know, that folks sometimes referred to it like, I think lovingly, as his broken sound period, you know, around Diver Down. And I always heard that kind of lower gain. And then I think after that, he got interested in hotter pickups. And there was, you know, the pickup was a broken JB, I think, was what Larry was saying in the 5150 guitar. So I think you know, I was saying too on the gear page the other day that there's, and I'm going to get to all these super chats I'm missing here. I know I'm going to go through and hit them. So Ben, don't worry, I'm about to do it. But, what was my point? I think at some point, once you get the harmonizer involved in Eddie's sound, you know, the H3000s or 949s and stuff, and you go that route, as well as the kind of, you know, he started using load box around 1984 for the tour, and there's all these other factors that come into play. But as soon as the big element is the harmonizer, yeah, the guitar and the pickup start to become a little bit less of a deal, because it's the harmonizer will tend to, now you changed the sound in such a way that I don't know if I can hear the difference between something like a custom and a JB. Maybe a little bit. I don't know if it makes such a difference. So the sounds that I'm most interested in when it comes to, his guitar tones are actually the Van Halen 1 and 2, kind of the stuff before he changed the bridge on the guitar. That was the other thing. Put a Floyd on the guitar and everything changes at that point. Still some great sounds, but yeah, just some random thoughts there. Coffee fueled. 673 people online. Thank you for being here, good folks. I'm talking about this conversation I had on the phone with Larry last week. And he does have this, somebody's mentioned he's got a great article on his website. He's got a great article on his website about, Eddie and working with him on the EVH, the Axis style guitar. What was it called? The Music Man, the Axis style, his first signature guitar with them and the pickups that they designed. So that's on, it's a Dimarzio article that he's written. Some great photos. One of the coolest things I found in the photos was, because this was around 93 or 92 that he went and took all these photos up there at his shop, and or maybe earlier, maybe 91, I don't know. Anyways, whatever. It's like, just into the 90s. You can see his workshop, and he's got a couple Ibanez Destroyers up there, and I found that really interesting. You can see all these guitars hanging, but he had a couple of, looked like he'd gone and bought, a couple Destroyers, trying to get back to that early album thing, maybe. But and they looked basically, you can't tell, but they don't look refinned or anything. They're like kind of like mine, the one I got a couple months ago. So, it's kind of neat. Stealth Parrot says, is that why Eddie used a Variac to push the amp into sag early? It's not why he originally, from my understanding, he used it to turn the amp down, because of course lower voltage amp makes less power, and the side effect of that would be that it would push the amp into sag early. So I think he was going for lower volume in a kind of a very primitive sort of way, and the side result is it would sag more. The amp loses its ability to deliver as much clean power the more you sag the voltage. So Seth is there in the top chat. I'm going to get some of these now. Super chat. And he says, have you ever thought about creating a curated list of your favorite distortion, delay, or effect pedals to tie in with your Sweetwater affiliate link? They've asked me to do that, and it's just one of those things that I haven't. I'm supposed to build a page for them or something that's got like kind of my recommendations and stuff. And it's a great idea, and it's something I should definitely do. So yes, the answer is yes, but thank you. I should do that. Do load boxes hurt amps long term, says Pulse 2AM. That's a great question. And my answer is that it depends on the load box. If it's designed properly, then the answer would be no. There's a little bit of a mystery about ones that will make the amp see a load that doesn't exactly look like a speaker. A resistive load shouldn't, technically, if it's designed right, shouldn't hurt the amp, as long as the amp is seeing a load. Where the concern is with load boxes is if the amp is unloaded. And it's not going to be, obviously, if it's a load box, it's going to load. But some of them, the curves that I worry about are the ones where it's unloaded at certain frequencies. And so you'll see some of these amps where the speaker curve doesn't look like, where the load box will generate a reactive curve that doesn't look like a speaker. It looks maybe, where you've got this low resonant peak and then a high rise that kind of tapers. Some of them will have like a wider peak and a wider thing at the top. So there's more stuff that's unloaded there. Or they'll have a low rise that goes up and never comes back down. So now you've got the amp at below a certain, that's unloaded essentially. And how high that goes it's a little, and the thing that I worry about that's been described to me is that it won't be a thing necessarily where the amp will just die. It'll be a thing where it's hard on your amp over time. And then after a while, you'd be like, why doesn't my amp sound like it used to? That's my fear. Can't prove it. We don't know for sure, and a lot of amps, I mean, shit, man, like Eddie used to use his, back to Van Halen. All things come back to Van Halen for me. He used to use his Bandmaster, early 60s, with the extension speaker jack plugged in to a speaker cabinet. And that's how he always said he wrote the first 3 Van Halen records. Well, the amp is not seeing a load at that point. The reason it's distorting so much, it's not like He'd crank the amp up and get a great distortion out of it, but it'd be a very quiet volume where his mom wouldn't yell at him from the living room. And, he wasn't using a load box on the amp. Well, the amp never died, evidently. And I tried it on my basement and it sounded great, but don't do it. Like, I don't recommend you do it because yours might not survive. But a lot of people, however they built the amps back then, those old Fenders, they live, if you're willing to risk one, I guess you can try it, but you're supposed to run a load on an amp. But if, in other words, Fenders have 2 speaker jacks, those old ones. There's one that's the primary speaker jack and one says extension. Well, if you only plug into the extension one, you will get a sound at practice amp volume, but you're not loading the amp and it ain't technically safe. So how long are you able to run the amp like that before the amp finally gives in and dies? And it'll be the transformer, the output transformer that would die. And that's kind of the heart of the amp. And it's like, it's just scary as shit. So, not all amps are created equal. Not all output transformers are created equal. And the worry is with load boxes that make the amp see something that it's not used to seeing with a cabinet. Is that dangerous for the amp? I hope that makes sense. So, it's all this energy that's building up in the transformer or whatever, as I understand it, and it's not dissipating like a. That's it. That's my layman's, there's probably amp guys watching this. They're like, you're so stupid. You're not describing that right. But, this is a layman's perspective. That's what I offer you here. What else we got here? VPUS, what's up? Finally got to this. I'm sorry. It took me so long. Thinking of getting the Wilkinson lock. I'm just mumbling my words together there. Thinking of getting the Wilkinson locking saddles for a 2-point bridge on an old Fender. Did these saddles allow you to do Van Halen kind of stuff? Did they change the tone? I think they changed the tone for the better on most of the guitars I've put them on. So, okay. To be fair, my experience with them is switching out the Goto 510 with the modern saddles, the bent steel or whatever, or not, what are they called? The blocks. That size saddle, that style of saddle, switching that with the whole Wilkinson bridge. And I noticed no loss in tone or anything worse. It was certainly at least as good. So there's that. And plus your tuning stability gets there's about 90 to 95% of the way to a Floyd to me. That's how good it gets. My other experience was a 6-screw Goto style trem on my white Sir Classic that I replaced the saddles on. The tone got better than with the Goto vintage style saddles. It got more, I swear it was just like the guitar was more vibrant sounding as soon as I put them on. And not only that, the tuning stability was probably on that bridge, probably more like 85% of the way to a locking bridge, but so much better. That guitar would not, that Goto bridge, I don't know what it was. I like Goto and everything, but that vintage 6-screw. This guitar, this is vintage, Fender original bridge and stuff. This guitar stays in tune. Pretty good, right? It's like, can you hear that? It's like basically, and it's always been that way. I don't use a string tree on this guitar. People ask me, why'd you take the string tree off? Well, that's why, because I'll just wind the strings down kind of the high ones to the bottom of the peg. It's got a great nut on it, and I've got it set up kind of Jeff Becky, but maybe not quite as angled. And I love the tremolo on this guitar. So it's just your standard Fender vintage. It just doesn't really go out of tune that much. It will, but it'll drift, but I can use it, and I use it sort of fearlessly. On that white guitar with the 6-screw Goto, sucked, to be honest. I don't know what it was. I couldn't get that bridge to stay in tune. So Trev sent me some of the saddles, and I put them on. Problem solved. Guitar stays in tune great. It's not the nut. It's not, that guitar's got slotted vintage, what do they call them, Kluson or whatever style tuners. That particular Sir of mine. And well, let's get it. Let's get it and talk about it a little bit more. Because staying in tune is vital to good tone. Oh, I don't have an arm on it, but I can move it with my hand. Let's see. Ooh, it's way out of tune. Sounds like I had alternate tuning for some. I think I did. I think I had it in some alternate tuning, and now it's way out of tune. That's funny. Oh, it stays in tune great. But okay, just trust me, because I'm not going to go through and make you wait while I tune it. But there's the saddles, and they fit perfectly on this bridge, and the guitar. The tuning got so much better. So, okay. Have you ever gigged a guitar with a wide range humbucker, a Tele Deluxe or thin line? Don't think I've ever seen you with one. Oh, you're talking about those Seth Lover designed, like a Tele Deluxe. Yeah. No. Closest thing I have to that is a Sir Alt T, which has my Thornbuckers in it. So it's a hollow Tele and kind of gets somewhere there. But no, I don't really have any experience with one of those. Never had one, never got one. So I can't really help you out with there. I'll come back to you in just 1 second, though. Let's see here. It's Newbie says, "Hey, Pete, love the conversation insight you provide. Thanks, man. Love to hear your favorite recent lick or one you've been working on lately." Let me think about that. Favorite lick or one I've been working on. I don't know. I have to think about it. I did a cool kind of the lead that I did on the video that's coming out for the multi-cab pedal. I was happy with some of the licks in the solo. So maybe, can you wait for that? I don't remember what I did exactly, but I remember I worked hard on getting a solo I liked, and then I was like, oh, I like where that ended up. Yeah. Pete, your perspective is more than a layman's perspective, says Todd. Oh, thanks. I just mean sometimes I can't scientifically exactly explain things like impedance curves and impedance and what's going on exactly with amplifiers. But I have sort of a bit of an understanding about it, because I speak peripherally with people that understand what's going on, and they try and explain to me. Back in the day, my Schultz Power Soak on a Mesa Boogie Mark II, does it do damage? You know, I think the Schultz Power Soak was essentially a resistive load. And people would sometimes say they could hurt amps, but I don't think that's a thing. I think it's more that people would then crank their amp into them and maybe end up blowing tubes or occasionally screwing up. You know, maybe a tube would blow and it'd take out a resistor or something like that. And then people would be like, oh, these script the amps. But a resistive load technically shouldn't hurt. I mean, a load resistor that's how workmen, to amp repair guys, use them all the time to test and work with amplifiers on the bench. And it's a pretty tried and true thing. I don't think they really hurt amps. It's just that people forget sometimes when they're using these devices that they're running their amps like a race car on a dyno, like up to 7,000 RPM or 10,000 RPM or whatever, and the car is not going anywhere. Well, that's the same thing as what you're doing with a load. You're making the amp, driving it into overdrive and making it work and all that stuff. You get the associated tube wear. And kind of, the amp is running hot and all that stuff, but you're doing it at such a low volume that you're sitting there practicing playing stuff. And it's like, there's something about the sort of visceral thing of playing in an amp with loud cabinet where you pick and choose your notes a little more carefully and when you play, right? Because it's like, it's so damn loud. You're not going to sit there and practice licks with that tone for like 10 hours. That's not something. Even Eddie used his bandmaster in a way that he shouldn't have, playing a quiet volume, right? With the cabinet in the room, the bedroom, because it's like you can't practice like that. So I think the phenomenon that we see is when folks get load boxes going way back to the Altair or whatever that one was in the 70s, as well as isn't that what it was called, as well as the Schultz box, is, oh, I can do anything now. I can play my amp and turn it all the way down. Isn't this great? And then you sit there and practice or something. Well, you're running through tubes like crazy at that point compared to what, most people will only play loud when they were rehearsing with a band or, playing a gig or recording in the studio, not all the time, like practicing, sitting there going over licks or whatever. So that's where the amp can, where you can run into issues, I think. Rocco says, just plug speaker into extension speaker. Yeah, that was the thing. Once again, I'm not recommending that you do this, but on an old Fender, that's what Eddie would do. He'd plug into the extension speaker jack. So there's on those Bassmans, Bandmasters, anything from the 60s, you'd see two jacks, the main speaker jack and then the extension speaker, which was meant to be plugged in addition to the main speaker jack. It wasn't meant to be used alone, the extension speaker jack. If you used it alone, the amp would make a very quiet sound and a really cool sound, but without the amp being properly loaded. And that's the thing. Now, you could run a load resistor on the main speaker jack and then run the second extension speaker jack out to a cabinet. I don't know if it would sound the same. It probably wouldn't distort maybe it would. I don't know if you turned up the amp. It just created a certain sound. I tried it with my Bassman because I'd heard stories about Ed maybe doing that and using I'd heard stories about it, maybe like running the extension speaker jack out into a Marshall, like into the front end, because it's kind of like it's such a low level out that you take it and run it right into the front of another amp. Don't try this stuff. But maybe he tried that. I don't know, but there were some theories that that's what he was doing to get a sound back in the day. Anyway, it's all dangerous. You don't want to try that stuff unless you do. But you know what I mean? I'm not responsible for whatever happens to your gear. Yeah. Oh, he said he replaced a lot of see, that's interesting. That I heard that about Eddie and his Bandmaster too. He said he replaced a lot of transformers, but the sound was worth it. So maybe he did back in the day blow up transformers. And I hadn't heard that the amp ever died, but that could be. It would make sense that it did. I would expect it to, We got 670 people online, and it's 1:30. That means I've been going 2 hours. Well, I'm going to stick around because there's so many of you here. So let's go another, little while because I'm having fun. Maybe 15 minutes or something like that. I got to stop before the 3-hour mark because the StreamYard has the 3-hour limit, evidently. So I found that out the hard way a few weeks ago. But I'll announce again that Mr. Richard Fortis is going to be on next week for those that have joined recently as a special guest. And we're going to talk about all this geeky stuff. I want to get his take on this stuff. He's a guy that's totally into this stuff. I mean, old Marshalls. And he loves tweed amps. I remember hearing him talk about it, which I found interesting. He was talking about that on the Tone Talk episode he did. So we can talk a little bit more about that. Should be a really interesting discussion. So join us next week, which is Richard Fortis from Guns N' Roses, as well as many other bands. Did a ton of touring with, I think it was Psychedelic Furs, right? And other bands that he was playing with. He's an interesting cat. How good is the Rivera Rock Crusher? I thought it was quite good. I haven't used one in a number of years, so I don't have an opinion really based on comparing it to something, let's say, like the Power Station. I'll tell you this: I've got my Phosphine Phantom out again. The kind of what do they call it? The white elephant or whatever of these types of devices that that were difficult to find. But I had one back in the day, and I still have it, and it still works great as a passive attenuator. I hadn't heard it in a while, and I tried it recently. My Power Station actually blew a tube, so I had to take it over to Stevie and have him fix it. So while I was waiting for that, I pulled out my Phantom, and it works really good for attenuating down to just like the -4, -6. Sounds great, but I got my Power Station back and working, so I'm using it again. But I left the Phantom there just in case I want to use it again. I got some super chats I got to get to here. Just last thought on the Rock Crusher. I always thought it was really pretty good. My one complaint with it was just that the first attenuation click was quite large. It would go what down sounded like -8 dB on the first click. And that was kind of a tough one for me. Other than that, I always thought it sounded quite good. I know Dave Friedman likes it too. I've missed 2 super chats now. Sorry. We're moving fast today, but I'm going to go down to the bottom here. I'll get to all of these. Jason says, I grabbed a brand new Sir PT Gold Top. Oh, awesome. Delivery this week. Super excited. I love the Gold Top, man. So that's cool. Please let me know what you think when you get it. Can't wait to see what your thoughts are. Hopefully it's a valuable sound making tool for you. And thanks for doing the super chat. Pedro says, do you use tube amps to practice, and what do you think about Neo Celestions, especially the Neo Copperback? I really like the Neo. I haven't tried the Copperback. I've tried the Neo Creamback, which is the greenbacky one. And I've tried the Neo V-Type, which I thought sounded quite good, and I did a video of recently. Those are the two that I've tried. The Neo Creamback is a very nice sort of broken-in greenback sounding speaker. Overall, from the ones I've tried, I've had good experiences. They're very light, and they tend to sound really good. So I have no reservations about, I don't have any perspective on the Copperback in particular, but so far for the ones I've tried, I dig them. George Barry says, any thoughts about ADA conversion on guitar effects? By the time that, God, man, some of the most coveted stuff in the 80s has really old converters when you think about it, like the old, the H3000s and the 2290s and stuff. This is going back to, what are the converters in those things? 18-bit or 16-bit or something? Some people like the old Korg delays and stuff. They were 12-bit. So with guitar, I think that it's like kind of a lo-fi sound, there's not a lot of super high frequency stuff going on. And it's kind of this lo-fi thing anyway. So it's like, I don't think it's that, we don't need 24-bit or 32-bit, 192K, blah, blah, blah. With guitar, I don't think it really is that big of a deal. I think the latency that each device introduces is probably more interesting to most guitar players, because the more latency, people tend to think it affects the feel. So, yeah. John Stitt says, please do a tune using the Enganatic how do you say that? It would be nice to hear your perception of it. It would be weird but cool. That sounds interesting. I saw an interesting post by Neil Schoen recently where he said, I don't use scales. I don't know scales. I don't pay attention to scales. I just play and I know where I want my fingers to go. And I kind of related with that, because I'm not the brainiest guitar player. I don't know all the, the various chords, or, I don't know how to harmonize a melodic minor scale or any of that stuff. I kind of move my fingers around until things sound good. And that goes for writing songs as well as for then soloing or coming up with melodies over those chord progressions that I write. Yeah, I don't really, I can kind of analyze what, I'm doing. I mean, on a basic level, like I'm really kind of a bonehead. Like somebody did put up a post on Twitter that said, what key is Sweet Home Alabama in? And it was one of those questionnaire things, or whatever, a poll, I should say, where it was like, A, key of D, B, key of G, C, kind of both, whatever, I don't know. It was something like that. And when I think about it, something that simple, I was like, it's D Mixolydian, really. It's like D feels like home. The song keeps coming back to D, right? That's home. Not G down here, and coming back to D feels like home. So you got a D and a C beside one another. That's always your dead giveaway that the parent key is G. When you've got two major chords beside one another, a whole step apart, right? C and D, right? And then a G, well, that's going to be the root, because you got your 1, your 4, and your 5. But 5 feels like home. So you want to play basically your melodies and stuff. This is the way I've always thought about it. My own stupid, if there's people in here that'll go like John, you'll probably be like, God, you're a knucklehead. But I always think about it like D feels like home. I basically need to play a G major scale, but kind of starting and ending my licks loosely around D being the home base. What do you end up with when you do that? It's the fifth mode of the major scale, so it's Mixolydian. So in other words, it's a major scale with a flat 7. So it's got a slightly kind of bluesy tinge to it, and you can also throw in the minor third in there and bend a little bit every now and then. And, but the D blues scale will kind of work. And that's how I think about things. That's about as theoretical as I get. And then I just play whatever sounds good. Anyways, what do I think about Spurzell tuners? I've got Spurzels on my the green Sur that's in the picture. There it is, sitting back there, leaning against the couch precariously. That guitar has Spurzels, I think, and they're fine. That's what they used to use back then. That guitar's from 12, 13 years ago, before Sur did different locking tuners and stuff. But they work good. I like the Surs more, actually, the newer ones. Now that I think about it, they're a little bit lower profile, and the wheels feel a little bit. The thin wheels on the Spurzell, the thin kind of groove, kind of bothers me. I like the thicker feel of the wheel on the newer Sir locking tuners because it's feels a little more, it's a little easier to get a handle on. I don't know. But they work fine. I've never had a desire to change them. My thoughts on stainless steel frets, says Tone Sheriff up there in the super duper chat. Thanks all you guys for doing the super chat. I really appreciate it. All you guys this week. Thank you so much. I like stainless steel frets. I always say on guitars that generally I'm okay with them on the more Fendery style guitars, and on guitars that they came with, I don't think about it ever. I think it's awesome. Only negative experience I ever had was changing on a Les Paul. That was a 57 reissue Les Paul. It wasn't even a negative experience. It just changed the acoustic sound of the guitar, and I could hear this little bit of a ping sound acoustically when I would play that guitar that I'd never heard before. So I went from a nickel traditional fret to steel, and it bothered me just in the slightest bit on that guitar. So what I learned from that experience is on my vintage guitars, or maybe on Les Pauls or older guitars that didn't come with them, it's a thing to consider. Do you want it? Because it might change the sound a little bit. But on a newer guitar, on my Sirs and stuff, I'm kind of the Eddie Van Halen school of thought. When anything I've ever seen with him talking about it is like, they're great. They're like this is awesome. It's a great step forward. There's no reason to not use them. They feel great. It's a no-brainer. And I sort of feel like that's the way I feel about it, so anyways, yeah. What else? Let's see here. Sweet Home Alabama with all minor chords is hilarious sounding. So, dude, I love doing that with songs. Okay, wait. Let's have some fun. I gotta get a guitar and let's play. Do I have I don't have an acoustic in here. Well, I'll use a semi-hollow. How about that? Let's play some classic riffs using major chords that maybe weren't intended that way. Well, you've been cooling. Or how about that's my sense of humor. Oh, hope you enjoyed that. Somebody make an album of all those. Oh, I should have tried Sweet Home Alabama minor chords. I bet it is good, but anyways. Jason Tong says D mixo is the same as G major. It is, of course, but it's a mode of G major. And the difference is that it's this is where explaining modes gets kind of like difficult sometimes, but I always say, think of it as a G major scale, but you start and end on the note D and get used to that sound because it has a different effect on you when you start and end a G major scale on the note D. Play D to D through the scale. And it's the exact same notes, but it has a different effect, the sound, and of course the chords that it'll work over and stuff. So yeah, it's the same, that's all modes are. They're when I always say it's all the modes are of the major scale is you start and end on each step of the scale. So, G Ionian, A Dorian, right? B Phrygian, all the different steps of the scale, playing from G to G, A up to A, 7, the 8 notes, whatever, when you end up back on the octave. And it'll have a different sort of effect on the way that it feels or whatever. Okay. It's all a lie, somebody says. Obsidian says you like hearing me laugh. Oh, I find the stupidest stuff funny. Ben Ellen's or does he have a Ben Eller, right? Is his name, right? He has a video on Metallica major. That'd be interesting. That would be funny. I gotta check that out. Context is the most important thing with modes, says Ethan. I agree. Have you ever played with Jamie Humphreys? I don't think so. I'm trying to remember. I don't think we've ever played together. My biggest influence on the guitar is going to be Eddie, I would say. It's had the most effect on me overall. Lots of influences. I mean, originally it was Pete Townsend and his sort of thing. And the Beatles, on my songwriting for sure. Because before I ever played guitar, I was before I ever picked up a guitar, I'd collected like 50 Beatles albums, like rarities and weird singles and things, you know. So I was a huge Beatles fan. So that's the biggest with songwriting and stuff. That sounded terrible, says Vanilla Slice. But it's funny. Come on, play that stuff at band practice. You'll make people laugh, or do it at a gig. You know, just start a. People seem to generally like it. Sick Gibson says Smutty. I know I just desecrated Dave Grohl's guitar, right? Somehow I think Dave Grohl might appreciate it, or he might say, "Give me that guitar. You're not getting it back." Buzz, thanks for doing the super chat from one coffee junkie to another. Thanks, man. I need your enabler. You're an enabler of my habit. I appreciate it. Joe Satriani is a master of playing music theory. For example, writing "Flying in a Blue Dream" almost entirely in Lydian. I love that track, and Lydian is that uplifting, kind of enlightened sound, right? You know. Once again, it's a major scale with the raised fourth, right? And that's what it is, right? Some see, I can't even remember. And it's always a neat sound. What else we got here? Let's see. Because we're talking about recording interfaces a little bit. Steve Berry talking about Axe, In, Out, and an Audient. Would recommend either from Focusrite. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm a UA guy, but I've tried Audient, and they're nice. As well as, what else have I tried? Oh, Apogee. I've always got to give my friends at Apogee props. They do great stuff. When you write a song, do you make a video of it to remember your ideas or write it down? I actually don't generally make a video of it. Well, sometimes if it's a weird, like fingering progression, like a difficult thing. But generally what I'll do, I'll show you what I do. I use this on my phone. All those recordings are all little song ideas. So, you know, I generally get in there and I'll play like a riff or something. I think I probably have them in here. Let me see what's here.
I'm just doing this to show the different positions, but it sounds nice.
You know, simple little idea like that. Whatever it's for some pedal demo that I came up with an idea where I want to show it. So I'll just turn on the recorder and give myself some simple, like, okay, I'm in first position and this is the thing for this video or whatever. Or if it's for an original song and I want to remember it, I'll say that. Because I tend to not name, I could be more, you know, I could name them with the text, but I'll go, oh, that was about 3 days ago, and I'll go back and find the one or whatever. I could be even more organized about it. But if I literally use this instead of writing things down, I'll go in and just record things. And that's how I remember things. So if you take away anything from today, that's probably the biggest one, is use that thing as a recorder to remember your ideas. It's a stellar way to remember stuff and not forget little, because you'll forget, you know. It's so weird how I'll come up with a riff and it's got a certain rhythmic thing, and literally I can go out and get a coffee and come back and sit down and I start playing the rhythm, like the placement of rhythmically of the notes differently. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not how it went. How did it go? How did it go? How did it go? And then I'll like find, oh, there it is or whatever. But if I don't, if I record it, then I know I'm cool, you know. Sometimes if I've got a session up and I'm getting ready to record, you know, like, oh, I'm writing an idea and I've got the basic riff or whatever, I won't use the phone. I'll just hit record on a track and I'll just lay a scratch down of the part even before I get drums going. Sometimes I'll do it to a click and then I'll go in and program the drums to my scratch. Now I've got a drum track to play my rhythm core guitar part to. So that's another thing I'll do to remember. If I've already got the DAW open, why not just do it that way, you know? But I do that in the car. I mean, I'll think of a riff in the car or something, or a drum groove, even like a groove I want to write over, and I'll record it into the phone so that I don't forget. It's a great tool. Mark Becker is up there in the top chat. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. He says, have you ever tried the Earthquaker Devices Acapulco Gold? Love the Sun Model T sound. There's another amp that is like the one of those sort of the off-brand Sun Model T. The review videos I've found on YouTube sound so different. Some are close to the amp, some aren't at all. I have not tried that particular pedal, I'm afraid. And I like Earthquaker. I haven't done a lot for them over the years. I did some early videos for Earthquaker of the Dispatch Master and some of the other, the really cool delays they had. They've got one great pedal that's a reverb and delay in one. It's white and blue. Is that the Dispatch Master? I think it might have been called something else. But a really nice pedal. They came out with a tube screamer that was kind of an early take on the every tube screamer in one thing. That was a cool pedal too, or like a bunch of different screamer tunable sort of screamer circuits with a click switch on it, and that was a neat pedal. What's the other one? The Afterneath. That was a cool kind of vibey ambient pedal. Excuse me, God. Oof. JD Analog says, how are you situated with pedal demos? My worldwide release of Tone of the Gods pedal is only 2 weeks away. Only weeks away. Love to have you do a demo. Well, hit me up. Send me an email, JD. It's a contact form on my website, but it's just Pete Thorn at Ymail. Pete Thorn, Ymail. Ymail.com. Hit me up there and let me know what you're thinking. We can have a little conversation. See if we can work something out. Out. Did I say out? How's it going, eh? Dispatch Master and Avalanche Run. See, Jay knows his Earthquakers. Yep, those are the ones I'm talking about. Are you going to release a phone recording song ideas CD? Well, that would just be the CDs that I've already put out, because that's how I remember things. So that's how the ideas start. I show this in my clinic, by the way. Like anybody who's been to my SIR clinic knows that I pull the phone out and I show that, where it's like, the idea for the song that I actually tracked in the clinic. I would show the initial idea where I actually sang the idea into the phone because I didn't have a guitar in my hand at the time, which always makes people laugh because it sounds so silly. But it's like, you remember a riff or whatever, sing it into the phone. And then I show how I would then pull up a drum program and get the drum groove going based off that. And then I figured out where the notes were on the guitar. But anything you can do to remember. Can you speak to Rev amps at all? The Rev folks are also I believe, kind of like the Canadian arm distribution of two notes. So I know them. They're nice people. I've done some videos for their pedals, the G3, the G4. The only time I've played their amps is at GitCon in Germany at the Warwick factory. If you see me playing with, like the video I did with Phil X, I think in one of them, either he's using the Rev or I am. I haven't played with them much more than that. So I don't know. I've never sat with it here in the studio and really messed with one, so I don't have a hell of a lot of perspective, but I think they kind of sound like the pedals, I've got a little more experience with the pedals because I've made the videos for them. And they're good overdrives and distortions. I mean, kind of on the modern tip, I will say. Modern, grindy, big modern distortion. I don't know, they're known for their like plexi style thing or whatever. Any recommendations on what a cheaper, decent, inexpensive wireless might be? I like the Line 6, man. I mean, the G70 or whatever that they came out with a number of years ago. I had one in 2016. Sounds really good. They're great. They sound great. No qualms about the sound. The only thing you run into with inexpensive wireless is the inability to switch to a certain frequency, which doesn't work for me. It work on a club gig, but not in a professional capacity, because when I'm playing live with a lot of the things I do on the bigger tours I've been on, I need to be able to select a certain frequency. You need to tune your wireless today to 643.52 megahertz, literally like that, where somebody will come tell you, here's your frequency for today, and here's your backup frequency. And it's not like on those little guys, they don't have that. They've just got like 5 channels and you turn the click switch, right? That's a thing because of the amount of wireless on a big tour, especially if there's dancers and like multiple, if it's a pop tour, which I've done. The amount of wireless, everybody's on in-ears. So there's all those in-ear channels going on as well as the individual instruments and stuff. It's huge. So literally there's a guy on the crew where his only job is to like do wireless every day and make sure that everybody's frequencies are clean. So he goes through scans, finds the holes, like where there's not going to be any interference, finds enough frequencies, and then assigns those frequencies to every single person for in-ear mixes as well as for their instruments if they need them for that. And that's why. So those are the only concerns with me. So I'll tend to use rental, Shure digital wireless wherever I go. I'll rent from a backline company And that's what I've done for 5 years or so. Before that, I was on an AKG, which was pretty cool too. And I could select the frequencies. The Sures are great though. So, and they probably have an inexpensive version too. That's great. But I like the Line 6 are great for the cheaper ones, and for club gigs on up to anything up to theaters, you know, they're probably fine. David A there in the super chat says, thanks, Pete. Always inspiring. Thanks for being here, my friend. I do appreciate it. I do. Down to the bottom of the chat here. I think folks are starting to jet, so I'm going to go pretty soon too. We still got 640 people online, which is insane though. You guys, I love you guys. I'll stick around. It's 1:53. I'll stick around until 2, and then I'm going to go and I'll get some work done. Asen, the whole guide service, is up there in the super chat. He says, I got to the UA Apollo interfaces after seeing you were using them. Can you talk about your signal path for pedals, outboard gear, and SPDIF use versus the XLR inputs with load boxes? My load boxes go via TRS cables, 1/4 inch. Well, like my SIR reactive load hits my patch bay on channel 8, and that normals into channel 8 of the patch bay, going right into channel 8 of my Apollo. My aux, because I was having some SPDIF problems and I never solved exactly what was going on. I don't know why. One day it just wouldn't work using the digital. Put your question up there on the screen. So I couldn't figure it out, and I had to get some work done. So I just came analog out of it. So now it shows up on, I've got it on my patch bay showing up on like channels like 11 and 12, I think. And then I just physically patch the cables over to usually input 5 and 6 on my Apollo. Once again, TRS, that's how that stuff's connected. So I'm not using the SPDIF because I had a problem with it and I just haven't tracked it down. Now, honestly, my desk, you guys have seen in my videos, my cable, people make fun of, they're like, yeah, you got some feng shui cable management issues. I never had it professionally, it's stuff's a mess behind my desk. It can be. I don't have any extraneous noise from cables and stuff, but getting back there and changing things now that I've tied it up as best I could and tried to, it's a nightmare. So I would have to physically get back there and find the toss link cable, and I just plugged it in analog. It works fine. It sounds great. It's a rock and roll guitar, that's honestly how I approach these things sometimes. I want to get this part done. I've been trying to figure this out for a half an hour. It's not working. I'm starting to lose my mind. Let's just take the analog out. That's what I did. Other than that, patching things in, I don't really use, like I got a 500 series, like my mic pre's and everything, that's all in my patch bay. And I got stuff in my 500 series thing over here. Some of that shows up on my patch bay, and then I'll just patch the cables into the inputs on the Apollo. And I don't use any outboard for, like, I don't have any outboard patched in on sends, like any kind of outboard reverbs or anything like that. That's where I'll use in a mix. I just use plugins. It's easier, and it's just, yeah. Yeah. Zed says, this is interesting. He says, you're better off running your aux the way you are now. Those toss-link converters introduce digital jitter. It's interesting. That could be, I don't miss, just running an analog's fine. Like I say, I'd be hard pressed, I think, to tell the difference. I always thought, why go through another stage of A to D conversion, like going, digital to analog and then back in. If you don't have to. It worked for years like that. I did a bunch of tracks on Pete Thorn 2, my last record, with the aux, using it through the, digital. But once I had this issue, I just never tracked it down after that. So works fine. What do you think about EVH parabellums? What's that? That's Mo's. Anybody know what he means? What do I think of the EVH parabellums, the super strats? Now you got my interest peaked. I have no idea what that is. I'll open up a web browser and look at, I'm going to do a search for EVH parabellum. This is a new guitar that, is it no, it's just a stealth black. I don't know. They're just showing like a Kramer style stealth black. I hadn't seen one of these. That looks kind of cool though. You just distracted me. I'm like wondering. I don't see anything called EVH parabellum. Oh, with the parabellum guitar. Oh, I see. There are no frills. Too powerful EVH. That's what they're calling these. EVH Parabellum Satin Primer Gray. Oh, okay. That's what they call those. I just thought those were called the 5150 standard or something. But I guess these they look like the kind of the 5150 body, and they've got 2 humbuckers and I mean, they look neat. I never played one, so I don't know what they, definitely looks cool. It's that old Kramer Charvel situation. Pretty cool. Pretty neat. Yeah, I like it. Lady Parabellum, says Ethan. Pretty cool looking. I mean, I've always got a soft spot in my heart for that sort of thing. Have you tried a hardware reset, says Ace in the whole service guide? The day that I was having a problem with the toss link and the SPDIF and all that, I tried a bunch of stuff, turning it on and off or connecting, whatever, and I just couldn't get level. All of a sudden I couldn't get a signal out of it. And I was really getting pissed off because I just wanted, that moment where you just want to get work done. And, you got this idea in your mind, for a part, I want to use the room mics I want to get like this thing going. I remember like with the room mics that I can do that in the aux. Okay, let's do it. An hour later, I'm still trying to figure out why I have no level. And I was in the middle of recording a video and I'm like, swearing at the back of the, trying to figure out why it's not working, plugging it into the cables and the sound. That stuff happens to me just as much as it happens to you guys, and it just bummed me out. And I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm sick of this, like trying to figure out this digital thing all the time. And I'm going to plug it in the way I plug in every other load box in the studio, which is analog. And I did it and it worked fine. One less thing to worry about. Sometimes I just like to get stuff done. Dan says, I like your recordings. It's great to hear how simple you like to keep things. Dude, it's so important. And if I could do anything in here, number one, it would be to get rid of the EMF that's in the room, treat the room with a Faraday cage situation of some sort. But the other thing would be anything I could do to kind of actually neaten it up and cable tie. Like I'd love to have a guy come in and do the back of the desk and tighten it up. That would be cool, and make it so that it was possible for me to easily find cables. They're all labeled. I can switch things out. That would be great. Like anything organizationally so that I can get from point A to point B without losing the spark and your inspiration. I want to play more and do less plugging in and trying to find problems and all that stuff. So, and it's pretty good. I mean, with my amp switcher and the way I got all the heads, I keep my pedal board under the desk now. I used to plug into an AB box under my desk, and it's still there. One side's going to my modeling stuff on this side to the Helix and the Axe Effects, and the other side splits out, comes over to a patch bay box here on my desk where I can plug in pedals, and then I can go from there back into the patch bay and go over to the amps. That's what I've always done. But lately I've just got my pedal board under the desk. I run my guitar into the pedal board, cable out of the pedal board into whatever pedal I'm demoing or whatever on the desk, and then come out of there and go to the amps. And I love that because I got my tuner down there on the floor. It's my pedal board. If I want to hit an overdrive, hit the freak out. Sometimes on the fly, I'll be like, well, I'm cutting a part, even in a video or whatever. I'll just hit the freak out and get like a feedback note and be like, see, that's fun. I'm using it like I would use the pedal board live. If I need a wah, it's there. So that's why I'm keeping it's my touring pedal board. So it's under the desk and it works great. Anything you can do to get from point A to point B quicker, is a good thing. Dave Friedman could help you out, says John. Yeah, I guess I could ask him to help me out, or someone else to help me wire. It's true. I mean, it's no different than wiring a rack, but I'd end up putting a bunch of money into it, and it would be downtime and all that. So, but it's at some point, it would be nice to have a, somebody that did Pro Studio wiring stuff specifically to get back there and kind of tighten it up. Because I do have there's 16 spaces of rack stuff in here, and then also some extra devices like my 500 series and rack and some, it's enough to make a mess back there, that's for sure. So do you use buffer in your studio for all that? Yes, I do. Everything's buffered, and I've done pretty extensive listening because I've also got, long cable run going to my other room, just like you would in a recording studio. But there's about 80 feet of cable speaker cable going from here over to the room with the cabinet. And so, from my own knowledge, I've listened to a cabinet in that room, recorded, had cabinet, short speaker cable, listened, come back in here, patch in the long cable, listen with the same settings, and gone, all right, that sounds the same. I'm not losing anything. I know that's fine. And then in the room here, as far as buffers go, my guitar is going into my pedal board. Hits a buffer on the front end, hits a buffer on the back end of the board. goes out to a long cable run to get over to the amps over there, and then that's all buffered. There's an input buffer, so it's fine. And occasionally I listen and I go like, am I losing anything, and I'll like plug my guitar right into the amp that I'm using, listen, go back over to my board. Now you're running way more cable and all that, and then I'll listen and go, basically the same sound. That's really important to me, that I'm not losing, and I like with the patch bay box that's under my desk, I can turn the buffer. It's got a buffer in it. It's an RJM, great buffer. And I can turn it on and off right on the box and listen to the loss that I'm getting through all the cables, which is pretty substantial. If I turn it off, it's like, whoa, it gets really dark and murky. So yeah, you got to use buffers when you're talking about running as much, unless I'm using a fuzz, at which point I'll, if I do a demo of a fuzz, like a fuzz face style or something, a treble boost or something, then I'll directly plug my guitar into the booster, and then I'll run a cable out of the booster and go straight to the amp that I'm using, and get that going. Sometimes you'll see me use a headstock tuner on the guitar. That's why, because I don't have my tuner in line anymore, and I'm doing something that means that I can't use a buffer. Yep. That happens. Do you use a subwoofer in the studio? Says Paul. No, I don't. For the style of music I do, I don't do any of that, generally speaking. So I've got, my Atom A7 monitors here, which are, I guess, 7-inch drivers. And I feel like they go for rock and roll, and my room's not perfect anyway, sound wise. This room wasn't built to be, I've got my treatment and stuff, but I do notice when I back up and get away from my desk, my low end increases, and I get, sometimes to check a kick drum, I got to back up this far and listen to this, 60 cycles that's going on in here and stuff. Go, oh, it's getting a little aggressive. And then I'll come back over here in the low end. It's just one of those, maybe just bass develops the further back you get, but I got enough going on where I feel like I've got MM45s in here, barefoots, which go down pretty low. They do make a sub for them, but I don't feel like I need it. Somebody's asking an interesting question. What's one of the last things that I think I'll do? And then I got to get going because it's 2:05. I've now gone 5 minutes longer. Have you heard from Mateus in the last few weeks? I haven't. He, evidently I was very shocked that he deleted his Instagram, which is how he kind of introduced himself to the world. And, he was going through a bit of a creative crisis and feeling like, the dude's, he's had probably kind of a tough go, as many of us have had, not me, actually. I've been fine during the pandemic, but I feel like him, if he went down to Brazil early on because he got a little freaked out about being in LA during the pandemic, then of course there was the travel ban. So nobody from Brazil's coming in right now. So he's down there for the foreseeable, however long. And I guess I don't know what that's like, because that's where he's from, but he couldn't come back up here. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not. I'm not sure. Maybe it's neither. But he's down there, and he rose to prominence doing these videos on Instagram and stuff. And I guess he felt like this. I get his sentiment, which was that this isn't what music is about. These little 15-second or 1 minute bits of, always, and feeling like he always needed to play perfectly and impress and that kind of thing. I think he's like, this isn't what my heart isn't in doing this, really, which I get all that. And I hope I understood what his sort of issues were with it, because I find it interesting, and there's a lot of truth in it, and I feel the same way. We're always, when you see me on Instagram and I post something, I've probably done it, 30 times shitty, and then I finally get a cool take, and that's what you end up posting, right? It's not always like right off the, that's how everybody does social media. They put up the prettiest picture of themselves or whatever, and I guess he just sort of felt like this isn't, the scrutiny and all that can be, the comments and I don't know, it all is weird, but it's also the world we live in, and it's part of that's how he introduced himself. So what I felt about it, not that my feeling has any, I want to honor the way that he feels about it, which was that he was having a kind of a crisis with it all, I feel like. But the reality is, and we all need to remind each other of this, I think, content creators and also just normal people out there, social media and stuff, you don't have to do any of this stuff. You don't have to do it. If you want to post pictures of cats on your Instagram for the next 2 months, go ahead and do it. You might lose a few followers. You might gain some cat people, if you want to post, if you don't want to post anything, don't do it. And if you want to post pictures of cats or food, do that. But I'm sort of saddened that he deleted it. Although I think it's, by the same token, kind of a bold and crazy artistic move, and that it creates, not that this was his intention, but there's a controversy that it will create, and you will get a number of people that will be like, when he comes back, it'll be like, he's back. That's just bound, because he will come back. We'll see him again, and it'll be like a thing where it's this, like, what's he doing, because it's, the smart thing, like from a business career perspective and all that stuff, isn't always the most interesting creative thing, which is, so we'll see what happens when he however he comes back. There'll be a, but I don't think he needed to delete it. I think the real thing was he could have just, the core of it, he could have just taken a break. That's what, sorry folks, going off social media for a while, need a break, and take a month off, and don't feel this need to, like, it's okay. Not everybody, I mean, he's got his legion of fans and all that, but it's important to keep the perspective that not everybody's waiting every day for us to post things or whatever. Yeah, even though, and you don't have to be friggin' perfect all the time if you don't want to be. I love the videos of, like, that Wolfgang Van Halen posted of Eddie when they were in the studio trying to rehearse and come up with something, and Eddie was like screwing up, he couldn't remember the riff, and he starts laughing. And they're so human, and that is, to me, the fail stuff is some of the funniest things when you see it on Instagram, especially with people that are like, when they're confident enough, because you got to be confident enough to show that you can do that. And, it's great. Dan, the Tube Man, says he's going to delete his too. Don't delete it, Dan. Just post pictures of sushi. You'll enjoy it. Post pictures of tubes, nothing but tubes besides sushi. Just tweak your approach for a little while. Do whatever is fun. I'm talking about, some people are saying, who are you talking about? I'm talking about Mateus, our friend Mateus Asado, and my sir brethren, because we're both sir endorsers with our signature guitars and stuff. He's an amazing guy and musician, and he's been going through, I guess, a little bit of where he felt like, social media is BS basically, or whatever, with, I don't want to quote, but he felt a little like creatively this wasn't what he got into this for. And so he just deleted it, which was kind of wild, but I like the guy very much. And I think he's an amazing musician, and he'll be back. And it's not ultimately, he can do something like that and come back, because as good as talent's there, it's transparent. I mean, he can play the hell out of the guitar. You know what I want to see? This is the last thing I'll say about it, and then I'll get to Vincent's super chat here. And then I should split soon. But Warren Michael Lee says, by the way, no way I'd do 30 takes of an Instagram video. You know what it is you spend 30 takes getting an idea together or something. They're not takes, but you practice it over and over. And then you're like, this is the way the guys that do this stuff think. And you're like, oh, I'll just put this up on, that's the best way to do Instagram, by the way. Don't take it too seriously. Put up the camera, take a quick thing of you playing whatever it is you think is cool, post. Put about 60 seconds into it. Once you've got a cool idea developed or whatever, those are the biggest ones. That's my little secret to Instagram. But not the produced videos where you spend all this time, like, really trying to, the ones I put up of pedal demos where I do mixes and I put them up, those seem to do well. When I was working on a Brian May lick, or from a solo or something back when I was doing the Ultimate Queen Celebration band, I would play a Brian May solo, and I would go, oh, I'll just throw this on Instagram. I would hit record and take a video, and those have like 150,000 views or something. It was those quick ones that were like, and that's the thing, is to not lose. Like, sometimes those, they don't have to even sound perfect or whatever. It's just catching a moment in time, and those seem to do well. I was going to say about him, my last thought on it, I just want to see him in a band with a great singer and a keyboard player like Toto or something, like, do your modern version of, stop putting the heat on yourself so much. Have some fun playing music with other people, but who am I to say? He's his own person. But it's like that thing, and you don't have to write it. Like, get involved in the mix with other writers and stuff. Just be in a band and be a great musician in a band. It's like I said to Rick Beato a long time ago. I asked him, what's the thing that's missing from this generation of today's guitar amazingness on Instagram and everything? What's the thing that's amazing? He goes, Robert Plant. and Jimmy Page, David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen. It was always in the service of a band, you know, and that's the thing. So it'll take the heat off and you let others, you know, then you get a team and you're all supportive of one another and all that. I just love to see Mateus do a great band. I think it'd be really cool. Okay, Matt says, I was at a Van Halen show where Dave stopped the show to talk to the monitor guy. That show became so much more special because of that moment. Lean into it. Yeah. I've seen people make horrendous mistakes live. And it made for some of the most entertaining shows, you know, where it was like, you know, Rudolph Schenker starting Rock You Like a Hurricane, you know, on a flying V, you know, starting that riff with all the lights on him. And it was way out of tune. The guy handing him a guitar was totally out of tune. He just goes like, throws his hand, everybody laughs in the venue, you know, and they get him another guitar. But I remember that moment because it was funny, you know, and it was great. Then he put on an in-tune guitar and rocked the song. These things are okay. We're all human and we're not perfect. When things are too perfect, I don't think we connect, you know, as much as, because it's the imperfect things where it's the human things, you know, the art is important. Vincent says, I bought an exotic SSS with bird's eye roasted neck and board. Got it home, noticed a hairline crack in the board from 22 to 15. I think I got it stabilized with CA glue. Worries. Hairline crack in the board from 20. I wouldn't worry about it, to be honest. Is it just on the surface of the, you know, it's probably fine, dude. I mean, yeah, if you've got it stabilized and you put some glue and it doesn't bother you, just play the guitar. Honestly, just things like that. I mean, those are the things that, you know, they tend to happen. Once again, guitars aren't perfect either. They tend to happen. They're going to happen. And just don't, if it's a good instrument and it doesn't seem to be getting worse, I would just, you know, some of my Sures have little, from the early days, especially the lacquer, you know, around the neck plate, the lacquer would crack a little bit or get I love that stuff because that's when guitars, you know, the checking and all that stuff, it's good, you know. Peter Evans is up there in the super chat and he says, killer show. And for the coffee fund, Sweetwater link. Yes, my Sweetwater link is down in the video description below. If you need to buy an MXR Timmy, or if you need to buy a Rocktron noise suppressor, please go there. If you need to buy a USB cable, please go there and hit that link. If you need to buy a selection of guitar picks or a shaker, you can make music with anything. Fantastic. Here's a percussion instrument. Okay, that sucks, but you know what I'm saying. Whatever. You can make music with all this stuff. And if you need any of it, go to Sweetwater. And hi, I'm Pete. I'm your Sweetwater sales engineer. How may I help you? 777 Danny says, for some hot coffee, thanks for your inspiration. Thank you guys for being here. And I will remind you once again that Richard Fortis is going to be on next week on the show. So we're going to talk all things guitar tone and his amazing career path from, you know, playing stringed instruments with no frets. Like I think he started on viola or cello or something. I can't remember what, but he's going to tell us next week. And now he's a guitar star in the band Guns N' Roses. For many years now, he's been part of that band. And he's always great on Instagram. Follow him. Speaking of Instagram, follow him on Instagram. He's a well-adjusted Instagrammer with his, you know, constant, you know, cool pictures of Scala guitar. I want to talk to him about Leo Scala because his first Scala guitar, I believe, I got to check out right before it was delivered to him, and it's a pretty much dead nuts on the same as my Scala Underdog, which has been a favorite guitar of mine for a number of years, and I ordered it after seeing the one that went to Richard. So we'll talk about that, but he's got great taste in guitars. And he's got great taste in rock and roll clothes, and he's going to be an interesting dude to speak with next week. Great taste in amps, great taste. I really found him interesting. If you don't know about Richard, check out the Tone Talk with him because it was awesome with Dave Friedman and Mark. It was just great. Morto88 says that he has some pics of sushi, but I don't post them because I have vegan friends. You know what? I just say, sorry guys, but I'm all in. Look at this. Get in my belly. You rule. And I'll take that right on. I'm sitting there at the restaurant. I'm like, send to my story, whatever. Look at this. This is insane. Photos of bluefin. I just do it. I do it. I can only be so correct, politically correct. And I draw the line and not posting pictures of sushi, worrying about my vegan friends. I've got them and I do it anyway. Okay, everybody. I suppose I should split. I'm having so much fun. I don't want to go, but I should go because I'm about 2 hours and 2 hours and 30 minutes in at least. So see you next week, 11:30. Rich will join, I think, around noon, and we'll have a hoot. It'll be a good time. This week coming, video for the multi-cab. This is a really cool cab sim pedal. I showed it earlier, but in case you didn't see it. Cab sim, power amp, preamp sim. For all you pedal board freaks that don't want to use an amp, you can use this, or use this with an original SUR reactive load or something like that, or a hot plate that doesn't have speaker simulation to go direct into your recording interface or to your PA system via XLR or TRS. What else? Celestion plug-in video. That's coming this week for the speaker. What's it called? Speaker bundle, I don't remember. It's a Celestion plugin that's really cool. EQ on every channel. You can blend multiple IRs, room sounds, all kinds of stuff in there. Speaker drive incorporated, and it's going to be cool. So those videos this week. All right, that's enough. I'll shut up. Everybody have a great week. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Ben Coombs, for being here, and thanks to everybody for doing the super chats. I didn't miss any, did I? Team It's up there, just a little something for being a cool cat. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Sorry I was so hopped up on coffee. Over and out.